All right, good afternoon and welcome back to the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of January 9th, 2024. This meeting is being held in person and live streamed on our YouTube channel and also held via Zoom for anyone who wishes to participate remotely. And we are going to resume this afternoon with public hearing item number 4. We are about an hour and a half behind schedule. We'll be moving hopefully to make up some of that time. Okay, and we'll turn it over to Corey Hawala to take us through the afternoon items.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. We'll begin with public hearing item number 4. This is LPC 23-09458, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 642, lot 42, 92 Horatio Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is an apartment house designed by William Jose, built in 1871. The application is to alter the ground floor. Hello. Good afternoon. Oh, sorry about that.
Stand up, sort of away from it.
Okay. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's for Zoom participants.
Understood. Okay. Good to see everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Peter Story. I'm the architect for the project. My partner Ed Bloomer is here also. Let me just familiarize myself with the presentation. I see. Okay. So we're looking down. So I want to start the presentation by just familiarizing everybody with the building and the immediate surrounding context. We are at the corner of Horatio Street and Washington Street here. This is a view looking from northwest corner of Washington and Horatio looking at our building. I want to start by kind of going through the context of the neighborhood here. Thanks for that. Our building is highlighted in red here, and I'm showing this map because our building is located at a pretty distinct place in the Greenwich Village Historic District. It is at the very northwest edge of the district here. Directly to the north of us, divided by the thick dashed line, is the Gavin-Sport Market Historic District, and directly to the west is not designated historic district. There's about a block before you hit the West Side Highway there. And just to give you a little bit of context for the surrounding area, this is on Washington Street, directly to the north of our building there, on the same side of Washington Street. And this is fairly typical for the Gavin-Sport Market District, where you have some older brick buildings with storefront infill. Notice the sort of horizontal cornice lines and the brick pillars with storefront infill. And then the building on the bottom image there is a brand new building that's just to the north of that. That is a fairly modern building that recalls some of the neighborhood's industrial details with its sort of steel canopy. Moving around the corner. Oh, sorry about that. What? Moving around the corner. This is on Glennsborough Street. Again, you see examples of cast iron metal piers with storefront infill on the top, and then on the bottom, a slightly more modern take on that typology, I should say. Zooming in towards our building. This is on Horatio Street, directly to the east of our building, between Horatio and Greenwich Street there. So you see the character of the existing street here is sort of atypical buildings, I would say, with some eclectic additions within the last 50 to 60 years here. And then zooming in even further. These are the buildings that directly face our building here. So our building, again, is highlighted with the dashed red line on the bottom right. Directly to the north, you see the building above it there. And then to catty corner to the northwest is where the High Line ends. And that is, again, storefront infill. I think it's currently a cafe there. And then directly to the west, where it's not a historic district, is 99 Jane Street, which was a residential tower basically built in the late 90s and has characters here. A little bit of history on the building. This building was originally 5 separate buildings. The three buildings to the north were all designed by the same architect and have a similar character. The two buildings to the south, also designed by a different architect and have the same character, but they were all combined in the 20s into one residential building. If you see top right image there, you can see where the two coins meet between those buildings. You can see the division and the differences between the styles of those two buildings. The two buildings on the south of Washington there, I'll refer to as the South Washington buildings for the rest of this presentation, just for clarity. The base of those buildings retain quite a bit of the historic detail that was there when the buildings originally had storefronts at the base. The buildings to the north do not retain any of that detail. Some historic images of the building. Again, we're looking across Washington Street towards the corner. In this leftmost image towards the corner of Washington and Horatio, you see the three buildings sort of combined by the continuous cornice line on the top with the arched central piece there, bringing them all into feeling like one building essentially. And then on the right of that image, you see the first of the two South Washington buildings. And in the image to the right of that, you see the rightmost of those two buildings. Not perfect pictures, but the best we have for that area. The corner of Horatio and Washington Street, basically this is where I showed you the original shot of the building from. As far as we can tell, the base of this building was always storefronts, with the addition of this restaurant on the corner. And you're looking in the rightmost image here, you're looking down Horatio Street. You see a break in the restaurant, some flat brick facade, and then a couple of punched openings, which were you can see someone pushing a pram into one of them. Those were the entrance for the residential buildings back in the day. And then the restaurant facade picks back up on the other side of that. The leftmost image is the eastern edge of our building where it butts up against 88 Horatio Street. 88 Horatio Street remains largely intact the way you see it here today. The notable thing about our building here is that this really was the secondary facade for this building. When it was originally built, it was flat brick, basically down to the base, with just a punched opening for the residential entrance. And then the 88 Horatio facade, notable in its sort of simple styling with half round cornice details and a thick base. A couple more details of 88 Horatio Street. It's three buildings again, pulled together by continuous cornice. Building through time, just quick snapshots. So somewhere between the 1940s and the 1980s, the building was converted from commercial at the base to residential. Unfortunately, when they did this, they punched windows haphazardly, as far as we can tell. They don't align to the windows above, and are not even aligned to each other from one facade to the other. It's got a series of bad paint jobs throughout that time. The rightmost image is present day, where it's a facade of peeling paint over cementitious substrate. Just to recenter, the scope of our project is just the base of this building here. As we're looking at this, just to highlight there are really three sets of criteria, big challenges we came up against in this building. One is the budget of the building. This is a co-op building. There's not a lot of money for this renovation. They are undertaking it voluntarily. The second thing we're dealing with is the existing context of the upper building. So the color of the brick, a very reddish orange, the color of the windows, green. And then the primary obstacle was the placement of the windows in the ground floor. As I mentioned, they don't align to anything within the building. There's no order even within that ground floor band there. So the challenge that we undertook was to bring some order to the base of this building to make it look, overlay something on it that gave it somewhat of a feel of intentionality, a feel of organization. And we really wanted to call back to its history as a series of storefronts. So that being said, the existing and proposed, existing on the top and proposed on the bottom. The proposed material we're seeing is, this is the sample we have made here. It is a brownstone stucco. And we've done a few experiments now to look for different colors that complement both the brick and the window color. We'll show you that a little later in the presentation. But essentially, as much as we'd love to do a real stone or cast stone in this project, the brownstone stucco is what is available for us with the budget. So in this design, which we think accomplishes our goal of creating an order for the space, we've found a vertical rhythm that happens to work with these windows here. So in creating this vertical rhythm, we're calling back to the bays of the storefront that originally occupied parts of this building. It also, as I said, helps to organize the haphazard placement of these windows and doors there. Side-by-side shot of our proposed space and the original storefront. This is a storefront on the Washington Street side, but things to highlight are the double harness, the horizontal double that you see running along the top of that, the thin vertical piers that separate the storefronts in the original, and the thin vertical piers that separate the bays in the organizational scheme. Some of our construction drawings, this is just to show what we're proposing to remove. So the top drawing is a removal drawing. It's fairly simple. It's just really a layer of cementitious underlayment with paint, about 30 layers of paint on top of it. So we're proposing to pull that all back to the existing brick and then build that up with scratch coats and brownstone stucco. Talking briefly about the materials on the upper right are the existing materials we're working with, that reddish on brick, the green trim of the windows, and then the proposed materials are the wood of the door, which we'll get into detail a little bit on later, and then the brownstone stucco you see in front of you here today, which is a little bit better wood, but and then a variation on that brownstone stucco that's a little bit more textured. The goal here would be to bring a little bit more depth into this facade. We don't have a lot of depth to work with here, so texture is our friend in terms of giving the facade some depth. We're also swapping out these steel grills on this. Moving around to the Washington Street facade, again, this is where you see the division between the two styles of building that make up this, that we're combining with this one building. The base on the left, existing on the top, proposed on the bottom. Same detail as the Horatio Street facade, but then we're proposing to treat the South Washington buildings a little differently. As I mentioned, here is where we have some existing detail remaining from the storefronts. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of money to recreate those storefronts in any degree, but we are simply proposing to restore the elements that are there and to go over the existing paint with a brownstone stucco that recalls the color, not recalls, matches the color of the lentils on the existing windows above there. Again, just a removal plan since they're removing our substrate. Looking at the materials for that, those South Washington renovations, the brownstone stucco infill. There are cast iron piers, which you can see some details of on the top right corner here. The existing cast iron piers we're proposing just to strip down to the cast iron and then paint them. But however, there are two piers which are missing. So as much as we would love to recreate those in cast metal, that was prohibitive from a budget perspective. So we are proposing instead to recreate them out of stucco. So on the very left image here is a precedent of a stucco pier that's been recreated in Park Slope, I believe. But we did an excellent job of getting the geometry as crisp as possible. And this is what's unfortunately, well, unfortunately, I think it looks good, but it just won't be exactly the same as the painted cast iron piers, which will be directly next to it, which we admit is not ideal, but here we are. Looking quickly at the section details, existing section on the right, there's not much to it. Cementitious layer that's been painted, proposing to strip that back, and this shows the sort of depth on the left of what they're proposing to add to it. In terms of where we pulled some of these details and depths and proportions from, some of it's looking at the existing building. So on the top right image, the brows of the windows above project a certain amount. That would be the same amount that we're projecting with prints. The arches of those windows above match the arches that we're projecting at the little trim of the windows on the base here. The base on the bottom right corner, the base of the building directly to the east of us, 88 Horatio Street, provides inspiration for creating this sort of strong base, which we feel helps anchor the building here. We're also pulling, these are plan details for that. We're also pulling from that building in terms of the profile of the projections. So we're looking at very simple half rounds, which is what they currently use for 88 Horatio's cornice, providing some detailing for precedence of doing these half rounds in bronze and stucco on the bottom right. And then looking at the textured band along the top that we're proposing, a close-up image of the texture on the top, and then two images of precedence of brownstones that use the same strategy to create a textured band that wraps around one of the little building there. And again, we feel like this helps add some depth to an otherwise fairly shallow facade. Looking quickly at the door, these are doors from adjacent properties. These are all within a 1 block radius. These are on Jane Street, just down the block, or just a block down, I should say. And again, what we're pulling from these is the patina of the wood. So precedents for wood doors that look aged and are a little bit darker in nature. So looking at our door, we're not proposing to mimic those exactly, but we're keeping within the style of the rest of the proposed design and using that material as an inspiration for a stage modeling here. Noted while we're in the looking at the section drawing there, we're proposing to reuse the call box from the existing building again for budget constraints. Picture of a sample you see in front of you with the brick and the windows. And this is the same sample, believe it or not, from two different angles, just based on the way the sun hits it. Part of what's nice about this brownstone stucco texture when you get the right mix of sand in it is it looks very different from one end to another, and it changes throughout the day depending on the way the sun hits it. And that is the conclusion of our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
Yes, could you just give us a sense, of the dimension of the texture at the base where the projections are used a nice curve, but what is that actual projection?
Face of the brick?
No, if I look at the stucco area, the articulation that you have down there, what is that vertical element depth?
That is about at its deepest 5.5 inches, and it goes down to about an inch.
Okay, 5.5 inches would be that sort of vertical pillar type element. Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions? Okay, let's see if we have any public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Gregory Collins to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised in our attendees list. First, we'll be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. The Victorian Society supports removal of the modern materials which now clad the ground floor of this corner building, including the cementitious stucco, doors, door surround, and light fixtures, and the applicant's efforts to create new facades which have a better relationship to the historic upper floors. However, we feel that the details and materials proposed do not go far enough in this effort. Starting at the ground, We'll note that the original low stone curb or water table has survived previous alterations. This is visible in the historic tax photo on the left of board 11 and in the modern photos on the same board. This disappears in the new proposal. We recommend retaining this stone curb. If it is severely damaged, we recommend recreating it in stone, matching the original dimensions. The applicants are proposing a taller, stucco-clad bulkhead, but this is neither historically accurate nor a durable choice set next to the sidewalk. We appreciate the applicant's efforts to add details to the stucco cladding at the ground floor, but the details selected appear to have no relationship to the original door and window surrounds visible in historic photos. And they're applied in ways atypical of historic ornament in general. There seems to be no precedent for the proposed mix of textured and smooth cementitious brownstone. This area needs to be restudied. There is an historic flat brownstone string course visible in the historic photo on the right side of board 10. The applicant is proposing a new banded string course in this location. We recommend copying the historic flat string course. The historic door surround at the entrance to the upper floors can be partially seen in the photo on board 11. It appears to have details which are similar to the remaining window surrounds on the upper floors. The existing door opening appears wider than the original, but we believe that a more historically correct surround could be developed, which would help unify the facade. Finally, the doors and light fixture at the main entrance are too modern. The large flat mahogany panel where the transom should be is awkward. Wood and glass doors based on historic examples and a black finished carriage lamp style fixture would be more appropriate. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from. Next up, we'll be hearing from Chloe Gregoire.
External folder.
Chloe Gregoire, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good day, commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Village Preservation acknowledges that the ground floor facades at 92 Horatio Street have been highly altered, and therefore changes to these facades that improve their appearance should be approved. However, as currently presented, this proposal does not achieve this. We find the dual texture of the brownstone finished stucco to be a bit odd, and the details of the proposed window surrounds and wood door do not succeed in meeting any historic precedent and are incompatible with the rest of the building. With some rethinking, simplification, and better use of historic models, we believe that a revised design could be welcome here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the ground floor windows, security grills, and replacement of headers, denial of the stucco coating unless it is of a brownstone color and tooled in a traditional manner to suggest actual brownstone in keeping with the style of the building, and denial of the entry door unless it has detailing suitable to the style of the building. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Sure, yes. To John Graham's notes about the overall style of the building, there were no existing retaining or no details on this building that were existing that we were pulling from on the ground floor here. So we felt in its unique position in its context in the neighborhood where it was previously a storefront and is surrounded by storefronts, that's something that broke from the traditional detailing of brownstones, which are not really present on the side of the street, was not as appropriate as something like this. So, I think general comment, same for employees. Yes.
Okay, all right, commissioners, any final questions? Yes, Commissioner Lutfi.
So if I look at the older photos of this building, what was the surface of the, since they're black and white, it's hard to tell. What was the surface on the top? Was it brick or was it brownstone?
It was brick.
You can find any brownstones in our excavations of the
With their actual stone and excavating, even the lintels and sills and details, things.
It was always brick.
It was always correct, and the actual lintels are actually steel and painted.
Mhm.
along the points.
And the bottom. And the bottom was.
A series of storefronts.
Okay, that's storefront. Oh, yeah, that's right. Right. Right.
Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
Just really quickly, the pattern that you created, was it based on the existing structure? That was there before, previously?
Well, so we don't have to look at measuring what was there before exactly with the existing storefronts. It's the pattern itself is a regular pattern that's about 8'6" based on the center. And that pattern actually came out of studying different patterns that work within our window placement, which we couldn't change. So we felt fortunate to find something that was regular and that organized the base, but we can't vouch for whether it recreates exactly a dimension of the existing storefront.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we're just looking at this photograph, which shows the storefronts is the two buildings on the end, right?
No, sorry, this is the three buildings to the north.
It's the three buildings to the north, because there's
Page 10.
yeah, there's another tax photo there's a tax photo that's also from 1940 that shows it without the storefront. So can you maybe tell us when the buildings were combined and converted to an apartment building?
The buildings were combined in 1927, as far as we can tell. But they retained the storefronts until the 40s. Hard to say when, between 1940 and 1980, they were shifted to a residential building.
I have another question. So, but the shape of these windows are not, you're not replicating that shape.
So this is not
This is not neighbor.
Okay, there you go.
I see, got it.
Those are residential, this was commercial.
Yeah,
So we are replicating the brow arches.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
You can see that for the wall, shop windows and the storefront on the west. And it's a one ratio. Which windows are on the short or something?
No, they're on the neighbor's building.
Several neighbors. So on the leftmost photo was a restaurant that had sort of faux arches above their open. It's like.
Okay, and different openings,
Slight different, right.
okay. I think we have the chronology, right? Okay, commissioners, any final questions? Okay, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. So as we've heard, these were buildings that were a series of buildings that were combined in 1927 to create an apartment building. They retained storefronts until much later when they got these residential window openings. And the proposal is to modify or alter the base by introducing stucco details with a brownstone finish, actually two different textures, to try to enhance or enliven the ground floor and to install a new door with a door surround. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, do you want to start this one?
Sure. I think in general, the proposal is an appropriate one. Obviously, there's a lot of, this is far from a full-throated restoration of any kind, but I don't think that that's, you know, we certainly don't require it. I think it's an incremental step in the right direction. The only comment that I would have, a couple of things. First of all, I find it curious that the choice of the placement of the cornice is where it is. If you look at the building historically, it looks like most of the history of the building, the belt line was pretty much under the second floor window sills. And they're actually proposing replacing brick in the zone below that line on Horatio. There was no storefronts. There were no storefronts at all, so the brick went all the way down. But along Washington, it seems like the evidence shows that that line was pretty much always close to the underside of that windowsill. And I think there's something about this that looks like it's missing a head. I mean, and I think it has to do with the fact that, you know, a typical cornice band, sign band, whatever it might be, has a top and a bottom to it. It leads as a horizontal element. Here, the only horizontal element that kind of goes across is the actual molded part. So I think that it would be to their benefit and to the project's benefit if that element was moved up and a horizontal band of some kind was retained. It should not be a cost delta, since they are spending money on messing with the brick anyway in that zone. And it's not uncommon to know that area would be brick behind a metal or wood storefront system. That's not surprising. So that's the only suggestion I would make. And also, I think the doors, by painting them to match the stucco, is kind of it'll never really work. So I would say they could work with staff on finding a proper color for those doors, maybe match the windows up above or something like that.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree, excuse me, Commissioner Goldblum. The one thing I'd add, the change in texture of the stucco seems very arbitrary. And I could understand it in between the window and the arch above the window or something, but just the line across there without anything else changing it, I'd just make it all one finish. And I agree with them. I mean, on this side, the door surround probably should be the same color as the stucco. And on the other side, the doors should not be the same color as the stucco. But in general, I think this is approved.
Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the comments as well. I think I sympathize that with the budget, but I should still going a long way to what is there right now. Yeah, and I agree with the comments.
Okay. Commissioner Lashby? So, Rick, what was the here before? First the green bottom and then the brown painted bottom. I mean, it wasn't great. It did nothing to enhance this building. And I have to say, I'm sorry. I feel like this is just another Band-Aid. And there's a visual disconnect between the top and the bottom. Maybe it can be rectified based on Michael's suggestions, which I think are good. But I'm just having a problem with this brownstone stucco at the bottom of this building, which is now exposed brick. And I also feel like the details on the bottom don't speak to what's going on at the top in terms of the door and the lighting and even the shape of the windows, which if they're going to be curved and which I don't think they need to be if you look at the top. If they were, maybe they should speak to the neighbors in some way so there's some continuity because the storefront's gone. I don't know. The whole thing just doesn't sit well with me. And I don't know, I believe that you said that you were going to change out the metal on the outside of because it looks so thin and I don't know why it would stop before the bottom. And I don't know. I don't really feel like this is as well resolved as it could be. And I feel like you're doing a disservice to this building because there's an opportunity here to really make it contribute in some way. And I don't think it really does. Okay, I mean, and I do think sort of combination of brick and brownstone at the base is typical in this historic district. I think it's that they're not using typical details that maybe is why it looks disjointed too. Okay, Commissioner Chu.
So, yeah, there's been a lot of good comments, and I agree to some extent with all of them. I think in general, considering what is there now, I'm going to be positive here, is that I see an improvement. I know this neighborhood pretty well. I used to work right on that corner, and when I look at the historic pictures, which are nice that you shared those, this neighborhood has changed a lot from when it was what it was. It actually seemed grander and more public than it is now because it's sort of a blend of residential, and it's a quiet streets back here with trees. So the fact that this is residential use as a building, I think, says a lot to how the base is treated to it. I think what is good is that you've approached it and gave it and unified it in a simple, quiet way. You did the things that I do appreciate are articulation. I do agree with my fellow commissioners in that they don't have precedent. They therefore seem a bit out of place with what's happening above it. In and of themselves, it itself, if you look at the historic building above, it has a certain lightness and elegance that I don't dislike. I think what it is trying to match the right details with what seems appropriate with the historic condition above. I also agree that the horizontal band needs to be more prominent to divide the brick portion above and below. This rendering on this screen looks a lot grayer than what brownstone looks like. I know renderings are renderings, but the brownstone effect with brick is a common use of facade in the city, in a lot of buildings. I do wish it were more of a brownstone. They're looking at this because I think that's throwing people off a little bit as well. The articulation of the door entries, I think, are just a little odd. They seem a bit arbitrary. I agree with that comment. So overall, I will say that the articulation does help the storefront in creating some type of texture and profiles that have a verticality and elegance, which I think are positive. That does recall storefront to me of those times of wood or metal. And it does create good shadows. If you're playing with 5-inch depth, you have some depth to play with here. So I do think that there's a need to work with staff on the detailing. But overall, I would agree with Commissioner Goldblum, and I think it's generally an improvement to what's there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Master?
Yes, I agree. When you look at what exists right now, which is an odd collection of window placement and sizes, this is a huge improvement. I agree with Commissioner Goldblum's comments. And I think that they can work with staff in terms of refining the details on the door, including the color and some of the other details around the windows and the cornice.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
So this is an interesting project for me because the intention is to create a new building base with a commercial base before. There's no harmony between the windows above. So this base is on its own. And what they did that I thought was interesting is to put a good rhythm on it, and then they gave it depth. And they did themselves a disservice by not showing shadows deep enough because it took me a long time to go through this and see the shadows could be very beautiful in this thing, you know, the depth of it. And they didn't show shadows. And if they did that, it gets even richer, you know. The color is not nice color. The door needs work. It could be just a beautiful rich door, you know, nicely done, beautiful woodwork. It could be a gem, you know, but it does need some work. And I like the base of it, that piece that runs at the bottom. You know, that's the original base that they have there, the water table, I think they call it. Could add to that. But, you know, it adds kind of the part of what was there before. I think it's acceptable and good.
Okay, Commissioner Alfred Smith.
I think it's an interesting approach, given there's nothing there now. And I think it's, because of that and because of all the original historic fabric is not there, that I can find this relatively appropriate. But I do think that there's some details such as the door colors and the surrounds of those, secondary doors, but also the main door, having that large and very thin expression of stucco. I think they should look at that again. That may not come out as well as they hope. And I agree with Commissioner Goldblum that the cornice height needs to be taller. It reads very differently on the other facade. And I think if they brought that line up to the under the windows, it would help resolve a lot of issues with the facade.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Chapin.
I think in generally approach and, using the stucco and so forth is fine. I agree with Commissioner Jefferson about, that not showing shadows is a disservice, because I think what you notice here is sort of the bottom seems to be just washed out almost. And I think it's, if you look at the photos of the historic building on, 10, 11, from the 40s, you see this, there's a contrast playing here, which is sort of nice. There's the lintels on the upper story were slightly darker. And, I think if you could carry that on down and see even like what looks like the transom is lighter on the bottom, and the doors and the windows look darker and framed. I would do it not just the doors, but I do the windows as well. But I would try to set up a little kind of rhythm of contrast, which gives a shadow appearance or whatever. But because you see that sort of playing between the upper stories and the storefront level, I think. And I think you can do it very easily and nicely, but just a little bit of tweaking. And I think for me, that's what's missing, because the bottom just looks like a unified blah, because it doesn't have any contrast.
Okay.
Very low.
All right, so I think that most of us are supportive of this general approach, given that there is no historic fabric existing and that it has changed so much over time, that a non-restoration approach could be okay with details that enliven and enhance the building. But there are some recommendations that include restudying the details, refining the details with staff, including raising the cornice, and in particular, looking at the door surrounds, but also the depth of other details, and also studying the colors of the doors and door surrounds. And I think with that, we can make a motion, and I think we're probably there.
Regarding 92 Horatio Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District, the application is to alter the ground floor. I note the building style scale material.
Michael, can I interrupt you for just a minute? Can I just actually also see who has an issue with the dual texture of the stucco? I know Commissioner Ginsburg made a point that it's just like a straight line across the base, and if that should be restudied as the staff thinks about the details.
I think it should be restudied.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
I agree. Okay, I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District, and I recommend approval with modifications. Finding that the work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features of the building, that the addition of the modern cladding at the ground floor, which was also in conjunction with combining multiple buildings and adaptively reusing former storefronts, will reflect the developmental history of the building and will add texture and articulation to the strict portion of the facade. Stucco finishes and textures recall brownstone, a historic material at this building, and at the base of other buildings in the historic district, that the placement and proportions of the stucco detailing will recall aspects of the missing historic storefronts and ground floor cornices in a contemporary way. That the proposed stucco ornamentation added to the modern stucco piers will recall missing historic cast iron piers and help unify this portion of the facade. and that the proposed main entrance doors will be simply designed in keeping with historic doors of buildings of this age and style in terms of proportion materials. However, the applicant will work with staff on re-examining the following issues. First of all, the placement, height, and articulation of the cornice span. Second, the color of the doors and design of the doors, both the main entry door and the secondary doors. Third, the placement and configuration of the textured stucco. And I think that's it.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Nay.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Commissioner Holbert Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 24-03304, application for a certificate of appropriateness, number of Manhattan, block 698, lot 6, 549 West 26th Street in the West Chelsea Historic District. This is an American round arch style factory building designed by Charles H. Caldwell and built in 1901. The application is to modify masonry openings, install storefront infill, remove paint, and replace windows. Just take a second.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. Rick Azar for alterations proposed to the primary and rear facades of 549 West 26th Street here in Manhattan. This work is associated with interior renovation to the first floor that will provide the Karma Gallery with new offices and gallery space. I'm here today with project architect Marcus Stoshansky, principal at Studio MDA Architects, and his associate Jacob Brickman. I'll start with a brief description of the building, followed by an overview of the proposed scope of work. Completed in 1901 to the designs of architect Charles H. Caldwell, 549 West 26th Street is the first of several almost identical structures built to accommodate the John Williams Architectural Metal Works. A subsequent owner of these buildings was the Otis Elevator Company. The building is a 6-story brick structure with limestone details and arched windows. At the left top is an historic photo credited to the year 1915. In this photo, we can see at the first floor the location of 4 original uniform vehicle bays. In the 1940 tax photo directly below, we see the 2 bays at the right have been altered. One bay is bricked in and supporting an exhaust louver. The other bay altered to allow for wider vehicles. At the right, a contemporary photo. It's a little difficult to make out, but at the far left bay, it's been modified to allow for a loading elevator, a pedestrian door, and an eye-level HVAC exhaust louver. The previously cited alterations remain, with the addition of roll-down security gates and a painted facade. Here are additional contemporary streetscape photos at the left, top and bottom, photos taken on West 26th Street, at the top right taken from West 27th Street, and below an aerial view of the rear elevation of 549 West 26th Street with a partial view of the parking lot accessible from West 27th Street to the north. Here are existing and proposed elevations for the West 26th Street facade. Proposed at the first floor from left to right, brick up of an exhaust louver, next removal of a roll-down gate, and installation of new glass doors. Next, at the right, removal of brick infill and an exhaust louver with installation of new glass doors. And at the last bay, removal of a roll-down gate and modifying the height of the opening to match the height of the other 2 openings and the installation of new glass doors.
At an existing fire escape, the drop-down ladder will be changed to a vertical orientation. The primary elevation first and second floors will be cleaned with a low-pressure water wash to remove paint. Here are existing and proposed renderings. We can see the proposed new doors in context of a cleaned brick facade and with masonry openings modified to accommodate the new glass doors. At the left is 542 West 27th Street to the north, one of the remaining Charles H. Caldwell buildings. At the top left, a photo of the existing primary elevation. To the right, a photo rendering of the proposed facade with new doors and cleaned masonry. Below, an elevation drawing of the new glass doors. Here are existing and proposed conditions for the rear north elevation, 549 West 26th Street. Proposed at the first floor are changes to the configuration of 4 existing windows, changing the current 3 light windows to single pane fixed windows with translucent glazing. At center, an existing roll-down gate will be removed. Oh, I'm sorry. At the top, let's see, this is the existing, yeah. Okay. At center, at the top is the existing condition, at the bottom is the proposed. At center, an existing roll-down gate will be removed. The vehicle entrance behind it will be bricked up. 2 new windows will be installed in line with the windows directly above in that area. The vehicle ramp in this area will be infilled to grade level. And lastly, a small window at the right will be replaced with an exhaust louver. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
Is the original building polychrome?
Is the original building what?
Polychrome.
Polychrome.
Is the
Do you want to speak to the materials of the building?
Yes, there's limestone and red brick.
Just come up to the front, just so the mic can pick you up for Zoom.
The question is there polychrome materials to the primary facade? And the answer is yes, there are limestone materials and red brick.
And the building was painted prior to designation, so they're proposing to remove the paint at the lower floors.
When they remove the paint, we're going to have image, a beautiful image on page 4. I think it's page 4. And you have the brown base and then.
And the stone details will be exposed.
Yes.
That would be defined, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting there isn't, I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I do not see any hands raised in the attendees list right now. If you'd like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, noting I do not see any hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 4 recommends conditional approval, asking the LPC to require careful salvation and on-site storage of original bricks to be removed for use in future restoration efforts. The board also takes exception to LPC's removal of the project's proposed skylight work from public hearing review. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay. Thank you very much. Corey, do you want to just address any components that are being reviewed at staff level?
Yeah, there are a series of typical industrial skylights on the 1-story sort of appendage on a flat roof. It can't be seen from a public thoroughfare, but not something that qualified as a significant architectural feature per our rules.
Okay. All right. Would you like to respond to any of the comments that the community board made about the front?
The community board was concerned about the the community board was concerned about the cleaning of the primary facade. We are in conversation with Renato about cleaning the entire facade, but in the meantime, we had to find a horizontal stop for all of this, and that was at the 3rd floor sill. Ultimately, they felt that this was better than nothing, and
But the comments regarding the brick infill, most of all of the brick infill that we've been removing is infill from the 30s into the 40s. It's not really original material, but should we find any original material, certainly we will salvage and archive it on site.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioners, any final questions on this? Okay, Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion. And some of you may recall this building, which was part of a larger project we saw a few years ago with the building around the corner and a lot behind it. And it was the Otis elevator building and had a large addition that sort of combined all of the elements. So this is that did not happen. This is a discrete application for a tenant going in at the lower floors, and they're proposing to, as we've heard, remove the paint to enlarge and regularize the ground floor openings, which involves removing modern or 1930s brick infill and returning the openings closer to their original sizes, and then just replacing some windows and doors at the rear facade or side facade. So we'll have a discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this one?
Yeah. And I missed a little bit of the presentation, but from what I can see, looking over, I found this appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I'm in agreement here. I think, this is a much better improvement. As the base will be, as you said, regularized, and then anytime you can remove from the break is always a welcome as an override from I would say.
Yes. Okay. Commissioner Letby. Yeah, I agree. I think the project's very well done. I can approve it. Okay. Commissioner Chu.
Yes, I agree. The details aren't quite there on the storefront doors. They are massive, so I'm sure they're going to be pretty hefty frames. The only comment I have is I'm sure it's been checked, but swinging big doors onto sidewalks, there's a certain code projection maximum, but that will need to be double checked.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Master.
Yes, I think this is appropriate. I think it's a big improvement from what was there. And I think that the commercial space is similar to what we would find in this historic district.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson.
Uncovering a beautiful facade.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we'll extend up and eventually. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of alteration over time, and it's sort of a typical storefront intervention for adaptive use of this kind of factory building, so I can approve it.
Okay, all right. So I think we're in agreement. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make the motion?
Yes. With regards to LPC 24-03304-549 West 26th Street, West Chelsea Historic District. An American round arch style factory building designed by Charles H. Hardwell and built 1900-1901. Application is to modify masonry openings, install storefront infill, remove paint, and replace windows. I note the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the West Chelsea Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features. But the garage bays at the West 26th Street facade have been altered over time, and the proposed modifications will only remove a limited amount of plain brickwork and will return the openings closer to the historic size. That the proposed storefront infill featuring asymmetrical black finish steel framing, large display windows, and single light doors will facilitate the adaptive reuse of this historic factory building and will be in keeping with modern infill within the altered commercial space found elsewhere within the historic district. But the brick facade was painted prior to designation, therefore the removal of the paint from the first two floors will bring the facade closer to its historic appearance. that the installation of black finished single white windows at the ground floor of the rear facade will not detract from the regular pattern of historic window configuration and will only be seen at a distance through a parking lot, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural historic character of the building or the West Chelsea Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chan, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chan, Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg, Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lefty,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
So that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 6, LPC 24-04737, an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1254, Lot 40, 608 Fifth Avenue, the Go Ray Building, individual landmark. This is a transitional Art Deco international style office building designed by Victor L.S. Hafner and Edward Hall Thale, built in 1930 to 1932 and expanded in 1936. And the application is to install signage and alter storefronts.
Was he who closed the hearing? It was Angie Master and Stephen Chu.
Okay, yeah. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Michael Barrett. I'm here from Atchison Doyle Partners, working with the design team of Horatio. You might remember we were here a few weeks ago on another building. Horatio is based in Vancouver, Canada, and they're actually doing about 100,000 square feet of 3 properties that are landmark properties, retail properties in New York, which is pretty exciting for them and I think for New York. The 608 Fifth Avenue, the issue that we heard today, we've been working with Leanne in the Business Express and have covered a lot of the issues with the staff today. Trying to throw it up, and I think we can be fairly quick today. The building, the 608, is on Fifth Avenue and it's sort of surrounded by and contemporary of Rockefeller Center buildings. You can see the manufacturer Hanover Trust building, and then to the north, the rest of significant storefronts which have been in front of you for the last couple of years. And the original building, we have the tax photos, was the late mansion, and again, was sort of very much ahead of its time. And most of us, or my generation, sort of remembers more of it as the Swiss building, and that area that was totally engulfing the facade, the lower part of the facade for years. And it started to emerge, and with approvals from the Landmarks Commission, the storefronts on the lower level have been changed and opened up more. These are photos, and we're going to go to the proposed exterior. As I said, we've been working with Leanne. A lot of the step issues have been addressed, but really what we're here today, if I can just flag as we go through this, the paint colors of the storefront is a commission decision. The storefront entrance change, minor modification. The signage on the buildings, on the 2 facades, and the signage on the windows. And you can see some similarities with what we talked about on 560 Broadway a couple weeks ago. And then a portion of the interior wall that appears in the storefront, and that'll be discussed as we go along. And those are the issues that I try to highlight. You can see better photographs of each one of these. The signage we're looking to mount with the detail actually pin mounting the Horatio signage onto the marble areas, which
have been significant. Here's a little bit the, if we jump backwards, oh, there. And you can see the signages we were looking to do it pin mounted. This existing vertical marble has been significantly scarred over the years. It looks like a machine gun hit a lot of the places where signage and attachments from that Swiss Center apparatus have been on the building. We've been actually working with some Opus, Michelle Clinton at the Metropolitan Club on addressing a lot of the pin mounts that we have on that building very successfully. And what we're proposing to do is restore a lot of those marble pinholes that we don't see it as dramatic as it has been. We're looking for the commission to approve the signage as we would mount it. You can see, just as an aside, the lowest 2 floors of storefront were not original, and these were added after this just center covers were taken off. And the rectangular entry at 608, the lobby is actually an interior designation, but the used to have an arched entry. You can sort of see the ghost of it in the marble. The east elevations, these would be existing and proposed for the signage. The entrance that I talked about, it's all storefront. It's not any dramatic change. It's just a reconfiguration of the doors and sliding interior doors. Again, using the same storefront construction that's there now, that had been improved. This is on the north facade. The signage is important because this is the pedestrian way out of behind Rockville Center. So it sort of emerges onto the street, and we're trying to catch the signage and obviously bring people into the store. In the north elevation, the full elevation, you can see we have signage on the 2 ends, and the signage mounted on the lower portion of the storefront is the signage that we approved on 560, which is brass letters of Horatio, actually glued onto the exterior with a reversible glue that these can be removed in the future if they'll intend to change. Another rendering of the final rendering, and just in the interest of speed, this is we'll leave this on for a moment, and I'll be open to any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Okay, not at this time. So let's see if we have any public testimony. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carl. We have a couple hands raised in the attendees list. First, we'll be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society, New York. The Victorian Society supports most of the changes which the applicant is proposing for the lower 2 floors of the Goulet building. However, we must question the decision to reclad the existing window and door frames, noted on drawing 18 to remain, on the storefront elevations with new black finished powder-coated aluminum brake metal. Commissioners, brake metal has a long history of oil canning, flexing, and warping. The illustration the applicant has provided on drawing 13 appears to display these exact characteristics, the very ones which make it an inappropriate choice of material for use at an individual landmark. Brake metal should be eliminated from this proposal, and storefront material should be specified that's in keeping with the dignity of the Goulet building and its location on one of the most famous retail avenues in the world. Finally, we realize that the Commission does not regulate the design of banners. However, we know the wonderful Fifth Avenue flag paintings of Child Hassan, and we mourn the applicant's decision to substitute proprietary banners for Aritzia for American flags. This self-described lifestyle store has a proposal which is already lavishly supplied with signage. It's a sad commentary. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. This building is an individual landmark, which offers a restoration opportunity that should be pursued more rigorously. In its designation report, the LPC notes that 608 Fifth Avenue is, quote, a transitional monument between the Art Deco style and the International style. We believe the building's status as a stylistic bridge can be better articulated if the applicant restores the stone bulkhead at the foot of the building, which originally anchored the building's show windows to the street, and also restores the masonry corner of the ground floor. Further, we believe the arched doorway, which once existed on Fifth Avenue, should be restored so that it matches the one which is still extant on 49th Street. Doorways are the primary way the public experiences buildings from the street, so this is a particularly meaningful feature. Finally, we feel the proposed signage is overscale and unnecessarily repetitive. The name Aritzia needn't be emblazoned on both the first and second floor of the Fifth Avenue facade, in addition to being inscribed on 2 flags over the Fifth Avenue entrance. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your testimony. I'm looking through our attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends denial unless the applicant submits a new design to LPC that reduces the quantity of signage, modifies the pin signage to limit new penetrations, and selects a more contextual color for the repainting of the storefront frames. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to any of the comments.
Just what I didn't quite understand the kind of that, was someone asking for the replacement of the storefront?
I think that there was testimony about the color of the storefront framing, and then Historic Districts Council talked about the design of the new door, suggesting that it should match a door that's extant on the other facade. Right.
Did I get that?
I think they're talking about the lobby entrance, not the storefront entrance.
Yeah.
Not part of this.
Okay, so that is not part of this application.
That's not part of our application. And the black painted portion, our firm was involved with, in detail with things of both on the work on the above on the original work, and did extensive work in paint sampling that was approved at the step level of another color. But we felt pretty strongly that this was a different storefront that had been added and changed a couple of times since the original. And that was our logic for the black painting, which I would say also their design team has felt very strongly about it. The reference to the color, that was the submittal that I was having trouble with earlier before. It was a black powder coat finish, which we think will withstand the time and the abuse that was referred to. And I think with it's a standard thing that's often done on New York aluminum storefronts. And just what had skipped before was some of the immediate area things, which are when you talk about the graphics, there was a feeling that some of it was overdone. It's very strong on other buildings, and we thought, frankly, that we were pretty restrained in the final
Just want to, I mean, this shop, it's really, trying to be respectful of the existing storefront openings and the existing glass openings and keeping the signage to a minimum to flag people coming down the street and coming across the street.
Okay, Commissioner Goldblum.
Yeah, one comment that you didn't address directly. Are you cladding the existing storefront with sheet metal or are you repainting with sheet metal? The tubes that are there.
Repainting the tubes.
So it's not cladding.
No.
Correct.
It's not picking anything.
There's no break metal involved.
Thanks. Thank you for that question.
All right, any other final questions? Okay, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So, okay, and Commissioner, Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so this is to repaint the storefront framing, install signage, and remove a portion of the storefront to create a new entry. And so we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start this one?
Sure.
It's very interesting landmark building. And I would agree that in a way, the applicant hasn't overdone it overall. However, with respect to the landmark, and I think on the facade, the tone of it in terms of coloration, I'm not sure that these two floors should be black. I think that they should speak more to what was originally there and be a gray color. I also, and with that, then you wouldn't paint the black framing at the bottom. On the first level, I think the signage is fine. But once you add everything on the second level, the two banners and that very large sign on the corner, I think it gets a little bit exuberant. So I would recommend removing the sign that's closest to the corner. And I don't have a problem with the banners. And then finally, in terms of the application of how these are adhered, I think instead of doing the pin mounted, that it might be better from a preservation standpoint to use a mounting strip. Right, or the applicants have suggested an adhesive. That would be fine too. Okay. Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I'm sort of agreeing with some of the suggestions. I think that there's too much excessive the pin mounted does too much damage to the original material, and so any alternate lower adhesive that's given. I also agree with the testimony as well as the commissioner's comment about excessive signage. I do not. Here, I think that the two flags are almost redundant, given the amount. You have one corner, you have 6 signs right here. And so I would see what the rest of the commissioners feel about the banner. I think that you have giant signs on the corner as well as on the storefront. And also the paint finish.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg.
Excuse me. In general, I think it's approvable. I think some reduction in the signage and pin mounting would be good.
Okay. Commissioner Goldblum.
Okay, I think that for me, the signage is the central issue. I think that the painting of the storefront is okay. I agree to be better in the green, but I think that because it's kind of red as a storefront, I'm okay with it. I do agree with the idea of the adhesive as opposed to the pin mounting. Enough's enough with the holes. For me, the way this building is experienced is at the corner, as this photograph shows. The building's design up above is very much centered on the kind of the design as a three-dimensional object that's viewed from the corner. And so for me, the thing that's kind of off here for me is that second floor text. I think the first floor text, I think it's okay because it reads as a sign band, and the banners are okay because even though it's true what John says, it's kind of sad that although appropriate perhaps, that we've cashed in the American flag for a brand. But I think that the use of the banners is appropriate on this building, which have them kind of integrated into their design. So if something's got to go, for me, it would be the second floor signage. And I think that I would certainly support it if others felt that the color should revert to something more historic, the gray or whatever the upper levels are. I think that'd be an improvement, but I don't think it's for me a key to appropriateness.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
I think my goal and I think that the upper signage is too much. And we have a lot to say, well, the one banner there, they are balanced on each side, they're in current locations. And it takes a picture of the full action should go in the middle and most of the duration. So, and also doing something instead of pin pocket. I think that's the it's functionality. I also agree with that. Yeah, I think the color that was more on the original better. But I don't know if it's not included. I haven't used thought about pretty well cool this as opposed to this the best thing that I could see. So I think it's because it's a sort of understanding to go this way.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
I don't mind the color. I think the color is fine. My only issue is the two flagpoles right next to each other with the same sign. And I think the signage on the second floor, either they have signage on the ground floor or on the second floor, but not on both. It becomes a bit excessive. And it's gold painted. It becomes dominant.
Okay. Commissioner Master?
I'm fine with the black color, given that that's more of a design feature here. And I think it's indicative of other retail stores in this area. Given that Horatio is taking so much space here on the first floor and the second floor, the frontage is extreme. And if we had broken it up into smaller storefronts, we would certainly have more signage. Given that they're taking up so much space on the first and second floor, I think that the signage that they're requesting is fairly modest. So I think the signage is fine. And again, I just want to say how important it is for the consumer to be able to see it from all angles. So, and they're not really doing any vinyl in the store itself. So it's not messy. It's a very clean look. So I think the signage as is fine. The only issue I would have is the pin mounting. And if we could address that, make sure we don't damage the marble, I'm fine with it as is.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yes, I'm also okay with the black finish. I do think that the applicant should work with the staff on their documents because it does clearly indicate in the details that it's a bright metal painted cap with silicone attachment to existing. So that's what it says. The thing that I do note about it is that if the existing profile has what's shown in the detail, it is a finer detail than a simple cap over it. And that little shadow line adds articulation, and I would think also a sense of custom and detail that this brand would probably appreciate. So I do think they should work with staff on that. What is the exact detail and how is the color being applied? I would take the name off the second floor.
Okay,
That's my comments. Oh, last thing, the black finish, if it is used, maybe use a finish that is more reflective and not too matte, so that it doesn't appear too dead and flat.
okay. All right, so I think we had some good comments. Thank you, commissioners. I think they're not unanimous with respect to the color, and I know you felt that the color should be something closer to the original color, but I think we have enough support for the color as is. And I think while I also sort of recognize that on Fifth Avenue, this is a big space and they're trying to get views from different places, and understand there's a need for each of the different signage proposals. That I think the majority of the commissioners think the second floor sign should go. So I think we'll make a motion. I'll do it since I know you had we were uncomfortable with the color. And we'll do a motion to approve it with the reduction in the signage, particularly at the second floor. So in the matter of docket number 24-04737, 608 Fifth Avenue, the Colette Building, individual landmark, a transitional Art Deco international style office building designed by Victor L.S. National and Robert Hall. So built in 1930 to 1932 and expanded in 1936. This is an application to install signage and alter storefronts. I note that the lower two stories of the building were modified in 1965, and the retail spaces at the second story were converted to office and pin-mounted signage. And pin-mounted signage was installed at the marble band above the second story. Staff, I further note that the second story was later converted back to retail space, and the infill and Fifth Avenue entrance was replaced in the mid-1990s and again in the mid-2010s. Finally, I note that the original building structure was designed to allow for large expanses of uninterrupted glazing and maximize transparency at the ground floor retail space. And I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the curtain wall at the bottom two floors, the building has previously been replaced. Therefore, the proposed new entrance infill at the Fifth Avenue retail entrance will not damage or eliminate any significant historic fabric. The configuration of the new entrance infill at Fifth Avenue, featuring a fixed center window flanked by two sets of paired doors, all below a transom, will continue to maximize transparency and will not alter the character of the existing and previously approved design at the base of the building. That the new aluminum infill framing will be consistent with the materials and simple contemporary details of the existing framing elements to remain. That the black finish will be discreet and relate to the character of, will be discreet and will not detract from the character of the building. That there is a significant amount of retail street frontage. Therefore, the installation of tall metal signage at select locations within the marble cladding will not overwhelm the building or detract from the strong horizontal reading of the building base. That the dimensional letters proposed at the storefront glazing are modest in scale and will not substantially reduce the transparency of the display windows, and that certain aspects of the work and the aspects of the work that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building. However, we recommend that the signage plan be studied to reduce the amount of signage, particularly focusing on the second floor signage. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote? Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Chopin. Aye. Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Lutfi. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved. Thank you. And just work with the staff on the signage, and we'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 7, LPC 24-03928, an application for a certificate of appropriateness, number of Manhattan, block 1211, lot 29, 418 Columbus Avenue, aka 101 West 80th Street, the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. This is a Beaux-Arts style apartment building designed by Henry F. Cook and built in 1898. The application is to replace storefront infill, replace a window, and install a louver.
May I begin? Good afternoon. My name is Winter D'Angelillo, and I'm a partner at Park Bench Architects. I'm proud resident of the best city in the world. We're honored here to present a proposal for a new cafe for the Kyoto, Japan-based company, Percent Arabica at 418 Columbus Avenue. We currently have 2 other New York locations, with a third on the way, which is going to be next to MoMA. Each of these store designs have a thoughtful attention to detail and exhibit a beautifully simple aesthetic. Our scope of work concerns the renovation of the east. Scope of work concerns the renovation of the southeast corner of Columbus Avenue and West 80th. It includes replacing non-historic existing storefront infill with a new infill design, removing the awning, refurbishing of the security roll gate, and new halo lit signage. The building is located within the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. Here is the location highlighted, so you can see its proximity to Central Park, to the Columbus Avenue thoroughfare, and to the adjacent Teddy Roosevelt Park, which is of course home to the American Museum of Natural History. Built in 1898 and designed in the Beaux-Arts style by architect Henry F. Cook, it's been home to apartments and ground floor retail for over 100 years. These are the tax photos from 1940 and 1980. Of note, in the 1940 photo, you can see that the signage band covers the building frieze above our space, which we'll talk about later. And by 1980, the windows were removed from the 80th Street side and a new metal and glass storefront was installed. You can see the overall building exterior here is a facade with a 3-story limestone base, 7 upper stories that have a vibrant red brick and white limestone pattern. In his original facade design, the architect relied more on this bold, simple brick contrasting rather than the elaborate decoration we typically understand in the Beaux-Arts style. Here is our space in present day. In the early 20th century, the building was home to many well-known people and had lavish upper floor apartments. It's our contention today to present to you a design which we believe restores the first floor corner space to a kind of material luxury that speaks to the original design intent of the building, albeit in a style more modern and befitting of today. So that's the overall context of the building. Here is highlighted our tenant space in the context in the area that we'll be discussing. Here are some more detailed photos of the elements in our renovation proposal. The top 2 photos describe the current condition of the storefront infill. You can see here that the limestone facade and the granite below are still in pretty good condition, and we don't propose any changes to those. The awning will be removed along with the glass storefront, the cinder block infill wall on 80th Street. The bottom 2 photos show the current condition of the security gates and the vertical tracks. These photos show our plan or the renderings rather, show our plan to the profile of the roll gate housing box and refinish it in a powder coated white finish, to install a new brick screen infill design with metal and glass storefront and a new halo lit signage. This shows the same on the West 80th Street facade, keeping the stone base and our detailing of the new infill at the smaller windows. Here we have elevations of the proposed design from top left to right, the elevations on Columbus Avenue, West 80th, the details of the roll gate housing on the bottom left, and the signage.
For context, this is the proposed design of the cafe. You can see the circle motif that we've done continues from the interior to the exterior as a way to unite the design and create visual excitement along the Columbus Avenue thoroughfare. You can see the two new entrances we added, the middle seating area, and the layout of the brick screen walls and the rear coffee making area. This is kind of some inspirational stuff. This is an example of how we came to the design of the circular imprint on the plan. The diagram shows our proposing of elements of the existing masonry frieze above the windows that we overlaid onto our plan. Also important to our initial ideas was the neighboring Museum of Natural History's fun use of circle and plan. The bottom left two photos are brick facades. And we thought these were a good example of how brickwork can be articulated through strategic arrangement, patterning, and manipulation of elements to create visual interest, texture, and depth. All of these elements inspired our final design. Here's a more detailed look at the stone brick screen designs. Taking some cues from the red and white contrast strategy of the building's facade, we are specifying the use of a limestone brick to create a new kind of brickwork pattern, a pattern that's simple but contrasting with its use of light and shadow, a play on open and closed cells as it's laid out in a circular pattern, sort of like a peekaboo as it makes the curves. And this kind of speaks back to the original material luxury that I mentioned. Here we see the current condition of the security gate, the gate track, the metal housing, and above the awning that will be removed. As mentioned, we plan to square off the edge of the roll gate housing to repair and powder coat the roll gate and roll gate track. Essentially, we're going to keep the track as is and just give it a fresh finish. These are detailed photos of the current conditions of the windows on West 80th. This is a rendering of our proposed design for these openings. On the left is a powder coated white metal lever that will be for our fresh air intake. And the bottom, and on the right shows the open brick screen at the middle window and with a new metal and glass fixed window behind. These are drawings of the same elevations of the existing on the left, and on the right, the new lever, brick screen, and below sections through both. This is the material palette for everything we've proposed for the facade. Item 1 are the brick tiles top left for the entry steps and flooring. 2 is the low E insulated glass. 3 is the sample of the white corian that flanks the entryways. 4 is the limestone bricks for the screen walls, which is the 4 altogether. 5, which is that little pink drop, is the color for all the metalwork. And 6 and 7 are just images of the existing stone base and limestone. We've compiled a number of precedents that we wanted to focus on. There's not a lot of examples in New York of similar infill designs, but we think it's time, so that's why we're here. So the top 2 photos are of facades just 2 doors down. The Patagonia store is at 426 Columbus. I was actually involved with the design of the inside of that store. That building was built in 1893. Just kind of a historic, fun example of using bricks and circle elements in a kind of a novel and fun way. It's a fun facade. The other 2 storefronts on each side of it, 424 and 428, install similar buildings built at the same time with modern metal and glass storefront infills that we think add to the facades. The bottom 2 photos on the left, even though it's in Paris, we wanted to show you an example of how a design in an old building can be inviting, respectful, and elevate the building as a whole. We also see similarities in its use of tiled texture, limestone, and a circular motif, executed in a similarly
similarly beautiful simplicity that accentuates the adjacent historic elements. And then off the bottom right, back in New York, this is sort of a fresh take on a tile storefront that's set back from the street wall, wider openings that really feel add and improve to the visual interest of the building. Just 19 blocks south, the Museum of Arts and Design at 2 Columbus Circle. Even though it's a building from the 60s, its facade needed to be redesigned, and we feel that the use of the iridescent terracotta cladding, sort of a novel and clever approach to redesigning its facade. Another tile example. At 2880 Broadway, this is an example, obviously, of a landmark historic storefront that we know and love, but is anachronistic to the time period and no less successful for it. And then lastly, this is an example in Park Slope, 562 11th Street, part of the sanitary store movement of the early 20th century, where they replaced wood storefronts with tile, metal, and other sanitary building materials and produced a more geometrically thoughtful and rugged design that is still in use today and beloved. So that's the end of the presentation. I'll go back to see. Okay, thank you. So commissioners, do we have any questions?
I just had one quick question. Can you go to the plan drawings? So does your storefront project beyond the storefront opening?
No.
Okay.
No,
It looks like it does a little bit.
so this is the line of the marble, essentially lines up with it. This is the track.
Got it. Okay, so it aligns with marble. Okay.
Well, to follow up on that, then you've got a black line, a white space, and then a black line and a gray, right? Is the white space the rustication, the depth of the rustication or the projection?
This one here.
Nope. No. Right here. This line, is that the rustication, the bump outs? So you're aligning with the bump outs?
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. Other questions?
Yeah,
Just Commissioner Chu.
Are you using custom bricks to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're going to be at the radius and cut so that you can meet those corner jam conditions.
Yeah, at the corner edge, they're custom cut.
And what is the color of your brick?
There, let me go back to the material. Here's a kind of a detailed view of how the bricks will be assembled. But the color, it's a off-white limestone.
Is your intent to match the existing facade?
No, we're a little lighter, but we wanted to pick a neutral color that complemented just neutral limestone on the facade.
Okay, so this is kind of just like a sculpture in front of a glass storefront.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens when little stuff gets thrown back into that gap?
Two things. They're a tool there. Yeah, to get in there, and then also its portions are removable.
But I'm assuming there's lighting back there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lighting tracks, so they have to.
You have to access your lighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at is an image that in your rendering, you show a very bright light brick. Yeah, and the entry elevation rendering. And I think the reality is it's going to be darker because your light is coming from behind. Those bricks will look dark.
So darker.
Yeah. I don't think that's bad, actually, but I'm just saying.
Okay.
Unless you're lighting the face of them.
No, we're not. So yeah, the lighter areas here behind, you'll see light.
Okay.
And then
It's a little bit. What's the finish of the brick? Is it?
it's a honed limestone.
Stone.
Yeah.
So, and just, is the intent that you see around the brick, the limestone brick?
Yes, through them.
Through them.
Yeah.
So there's some
Transparency that comes through. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's see if there's is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak on this item? Oh, yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
Like two entrances. Like two entrances.
That's a good question. I mean, they wanted ease of access into the space and it's all infill now. So we wanted to bring it back to the door that was there, and it's just an ease of access, I think, is their preference. Okay, and again, they're asking if anyone in the room wishes to speak on this item. Not seeing anyone, I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised in the attendees list. The first we'll be hearing from is Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee appreciates this refreshing alternative design to floor-to-ceiling glazed windows. It seems strange, however, to place a signage and roll gate cover on both entrances over the frieze of triglyphs and circular motifs which serve as inspiration for the proposed design, both on the interior and exterior of the storefront. A better option would be to reverse it so the gate box lies just below the lintel and can be inborne of the facade, not projecting out into the street. We advocate against the approval of exterior gates that completely shield commercial storefront windows and doors from view. Interior gates are preferred and do not contribute to a sense of decline in the commercial streetscape. Further, the specified gates violate a 2009 city ruling and should not be approved even for landmark buildings. Our committee also recommends that screens be placed behind the vertical brick motif wall, which flanks both entrances, as it seems like an ideal landing spot for trash, which may prove difficult to clean and thus detract from landmark structure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Nicole Painter. Nicole Painter, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Nicole Painter. I'm the Executive Director of the Columbus Avenue Business Improvement District. The Columbus Avenue Business Improvement District, BID, covers Columbus Avenue from West 67th to West 82nd Street, all of which is within the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. The BID is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization working to maintain and enhance the heart of the Upper West Side for residents, merchants, and visitors alike. We do so through the support of our vibrant and successful retail streetscape. The BID does not generally comment on applications to the Landmarks Preservation Commission, but we make an exception in this case. We enthusiastically welcome the prospect of Percent Arabica joining the Columbus Avenue retail community and appreciate the overall design in the proposal. However, we believe the proposed solid panel exterior gates are inconsistent with a healthy retail environment. Solid panel gates close off the streetscape and make an area appear darker and less safe. During a store's closing hours in the morning and at night, solid external gates imply the threat of crime and present a hostile facade to neighboring businesses that are open for business. This is especially egregious when gates such as the proposed are prominent on 2 facades. In recognition of the importance of innovation in retail and restaurant design, the Commission has consistently shown flexibility in approving storefront schemes when they are limited to openings and historic facades. We applaud this policy. It ensures our retailers can remain competitive in a fast-changing and highly competitive retail environment. The portions of this proposal that fall within the storefront openings are interesting, innovative, and commendable. The proposed solid panel exterior gates and gate box, however, sit proud of the facade, breaking that rule and hiding important masonry details above the storefronts. The applicant cites the existing grandfathered exterior gates as a rationalization for the proposed design. These gates date at least to the 1970s, a very different era on Columbus Avenue when crime was endemic and such gates were the rule. Landlords and retailers have worked for decades to rid the neighborhood of such gates, and now such grandfathered solid panel exterior gates are very rare on Columbus Avenue and the Upper West Side. In those rare instances in the neighborhood where a particular retail use demands gates, acceptable alternatives to solid external gates include internal gates and on rare occasions, transparent decorative gates. Such options improve visibility to customers, allow internal light to shine on the sidewalk, and make the street more appealing. Lastly, it is important to note, in 2011, the City of New York passed a law banning the installation of solid panel security gates for commercial stores. Currently, city law requires at least 70% transparency in any gates installed. Existing security gates, such as the proposed gates, if approved, that do not meet the 70% transparency threshold, must be replaced with compliant gates by 2026, just 2 years from today. We ask the Commission to continue to be liberal in allowing retailers to innovate within the masonry openings of our historic buildings, including in this instance. By contrast, we urge the Commission to reject the external solid panel gates and gate box in this proposal as historically inappropriate, functionally unnecessary, and as a blight on the retail street life of Columbus Avenue and the historic Upper West Side. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HGC finds this proposal to be almost appropriate. Unfortunately, this is a particularly bad rendering that does the applicant no favors because it's hard to understand what they're actually proposing. That said, we believe that this might be a relatively modest and interesting proposal, but we feel the proposed signage needs to be dropped below the building's lovely stone frieze and more meaningfully recessed within the facade openings. Further, the infill, which strikes us as interesting, also needs to be recessed from the storefront so that the classical language of the building reads as dominant. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I did not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7.
Please try again.
Okay. Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval with the suggestion that the roll gate housing should be just below the cornice line. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, and I'm going to turn back to you, but before I do, I just want to clarify that the proposal before us is to modify the housing, the gates. The gates are existing. They were installed prior to designation, so they are in essence vested, unless the applicant is proposing to remove them, which they're not. They're just modifying the housing. So the proposal we're looking at is to paint them and to put signage on the housing. So there are some limitations in our review of that, but I'll let you respond to any other comments and that we've heard, and particularly the comment about recessing the infill so it reads as infill and leaves the architecture proud.
Yeah, the frieze, the box in the frieze, the first comment that she made, we don't 100% disagree, but it's there. We wanted to leave the housing. And you do see the frieze everywhere else that the housing is not. So that was sort of a trade-off on that. And then the reading of the infill, I mean, I think we felt that the pattern is going to be sort of so light and moving that it's going to feel very differentiated from the solid masonry. So it's not, we don't really feel that it conflicts with the masonry openings that are there. We looked at recessing it in and both, and it didn't make a huge visual impact when we did recess it in. So,
okay. All right, commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Leffey, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So as I said, we're going to be looking at the proposal to replace the infill with this new storefront arrangement, this new infill that would consist of a storefront with this stone brick lattice in front of it. And then removing louvers from one window and installing the same lattice system and painting the existing gates and modifying the housing to accommodate signage. So Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think overall, I think it's very interesting. I think it's really nice that you got rid of the awning, which was really overwhelming and kind of hid this corner and the beauty of this building. In terms of the storefront, I know it's very innovative and very different from what was there before. But I think that we have instances of other types of creative interpretations of storefronts in this district, so I can find it appropriate. The only question that I had, which I think you had answered, was whether it kind of came out, whether the storefront kind of came out or whether it was recessed. And it seems to me that the applicant had said that it was recessed or flush.
It's flush, yeah.
Flush with the building. So I think I can find that appropriate. And then I think the second question was the roll down gate. My only concern is perhaps the roll down gate is a little bit too bright. And perhaps we can look at the color of the roll down gate. But other than that, I can find this appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I think it's a really kind of imaginative solution, even in geometric terms, and where the light will come in will be quite festive. I think to having it flush, if they pushed it back more or pushed it out more a little bit, would make it even more dynamic. But I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I think this is, it's very interesting. And then, it's kind of, I think it's nice to see a sort of novel approach, design wise. I was initially sort of looking at, I think as often as the case, renderings don't necessarily do justice to things. And it looks like very startlingly white, but it sounds like it's not really going, it's going to be slightly different. And I think that's okay. And I'm actually not that concerned either about the, I guess that's the only, and it is somewhat recessed. We had that discussion already, so. And is it halo that or something?
Signs, I think on the housing, the security gate housing.
Backlit maybe or something. Anyway, it doesn't look, because it's sort of,
It has a halo.
Is it sort of white on white? I don't think it's going to be that, I'm interested to see it. I go to this neighborhood quite often, so I'm interested to see how it looks like.
Okay, and just to, and I maybe should have said this at the beginning, on Columbus Avenue, even at the time that the district was designated, the commission recognized that there was little storefront infill, historic storefront infill, and that it had changed a lot over time by then. And when the district was designated, the commission used storefront guidelines to regulate Columbus Avenue that were very similar to the Madison Avenue guidelines, that as long as the piers were preserved, that the staff could approve a variety of types of infill. And so the result along Columbus Avenue is that there is an eclectic mix of commercial storefronts within the openings. And so I think that factors into part of the discussion today. Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree that it's generally an appropriate scheme. I do think that I think that the applicants will be disappointed if they think that gate box is going to look anything at all like what they're showing in their rendering. Those things are usually beat up and they don't really look they're never really made as finished items. And the irony is that this scheme, because of the depth of the way it's designed with this kind of outer layer and then glass, then inner layer, would be a slam dunk for an internalized gate or even an external gate that was behind the scrim. But it's out of our grip. So there you go. I think that, like Horatio said, they should recess the limestone a little bit so that it is at most aligning with the innermost layer of the limestone facade, not the rustications or projections. Which interestingly they did on their window. The only thing that's projecting are the two doors, and it just kind of looks like a mistake, and it tends to overshadow the building. Even though the fact is that the gate tracks themselves will obscure that relationship until they have to replace it in a few years anyway. So it's appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chen.
Interesting discussion, because as I was saying here, the report is reaching out on my other job about retail theft, about
that this is the sign of the times. And I guess the reason, you know, and the council bill, the testimony about the council bill that I think they since raised the bar. Originally, it was supposed to be at least 50% transparent, so that it doesn't look like Rikers Island or whatever. But this is now I'm surprised to hear that it's 70% transparent, which is that contrary to what this scheme is proposing. And I, you know, this is some of the commissioner alluded to is, you know, this is nowhere near what is I'm rendering. Right? So therefore, it is about what we're comfortable with. And I agree with the comments that, you know, at the minimum, I think this thing should be setbacks rather than straight up to the thing. Because what it is now is that, number one, obviously it's good to get rid of that ugly canopy. But on the second part, it is about, this now becomes the dominant feature for this historic thing. But Madison Avenue is, you know, Columbus Avenue as well, have these different storefronts. So I would defer to the majority on this one.
But just to be clear, it's the security gates are existing to remain. It's the storefront infill, which has this limestone brick mesh that the commission is discussing.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Lutfi.
So I agree with the comments that I do think it's a very interesting design. And I agree with the comments that the limestone mesh should be recessed. I do want to say that even though this is just something for you to think about, it's not going to really impact what I, you know, how I vote, but this is a very prominent corner. And so everyone's going to see this roll down gate completely pulled down in two very highly visible locations. You know, the business improvement district plays a very, very important role in supporting commerce in the area. And I'm highly sympathetic to their wish that the roll down gate be transparent. It actually does you a service because number one, no graffiti. Number two, from a visibility standpoint, what it does is it actually sort of gives an eye to like this little jewel box that's inside. And so even though, as I said, this is not within our purview, I would love for you to think about that because I think ultimately it will benefit you. And as part of being part of the business community in this area in a highly visible location, I think it's doing a service to the community and your business neighbors on a number of levels. Okay, Commissioner Chu.
Yeah, I'm not going to restate what many of the commissioners have said about the enclosure. You know, you're going to have to wrap this with another sheet metal box. I think that's what was being mentioned earlier. I think that in general, I like the whimsical quality. My comment is that I do think you need to push it back or look at your radius to see if you can increase it so that it's not as flat as it may be, only because there's a fine line between it looking like a brick infill into an opening and an expression that talks about this really graceful arc that you've created. And having that in shadow will make your design stand out more. Just as if you did put that box inside the opening, the whole thing would be perfect, I think. But that's my comment. Okay. And last comment. I would recommend putting a plate where the brick hits the jamb stone of the existing opening, because I don't see any condition where not having something separate the two isn't going to look bad.
Okay. All right. And I know Commissioner Master talked about the starkness of the white color on the security gate and housing. Do other people feel that should be studied with the staff to tone it down? Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead and make a motion to approve it with the recommendation that they recess the stone brick lattice in consultation with the staff to find that right spot, and that they work with the staff on the final color for the security gate and housing.
In the matter of LPC 24 03928, 418 Columbus Avenue, aka 101 West 80th Street, Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. I note that the builder's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the removal of the existing large awkwardly placed awning will expose the historic masonry pier at the building's corner, that the existing roll-down gate housings were installed prior to designation and that they are being modified to be used as signboards. That the streetscape has historically featured a variety of storefronts of different periods and styles. Therefore, the proposed contemporary sculptural storefront design featuring shallow curved recessed white brick lattice infill set back from the street wall will be harmonious with historic recessed storefront entrances and display vitrines, and in keeping with the eclectic character of this commercial streetscape. That the proposed decorative brickwork set in a lattice pattern will maintain some transparency and will fit neatly between the prominent piers at the building space, consistent with the commercial character of the streetscape, and the lattice pattern brick infill and glazing at the adjacent window opening will reintroduce transparency at this opening, which was filled in prior to designation. That the proposed full window louver will be set back from the plane of the facade, will be simply designed and finished to match the storefront infill and will not call undue attention to itself. And that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. I find that the placement of the infill at the outer edge of the masonry openings is not subordinate to the historic decorative masonry at the building space, that the proposed white finish at the solid road gates, tracks, and housing when closed will compete with the decorative and rusticated masonry at the base of the building. Therefore, I recommend that the infill be recessed within the outer edges of the masonry openings and that the applicant work with staff to determine an appropriate color for the roll down gates.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin. Aye. Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi. Sorry. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved. Please continue to work with the staff and we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 8, LPC 24 03885, an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1145, lot 57, 160 West 74th Street, aka 160 to 162 West 74th Street, the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. This is a Georgian Revival style school building designed by Lamb and Rich and built in 1893. And the application is to construct neon and rooftop additions and remove a portion of an areaway wall to install a barrier-free access lift.
Sorry, I was waiting for more commissioners to come back to the table. Hello, commissioners and member staff. Thank you for hearing this application today. My name is Jackie Creedy-Allen, JPD Preservation Consulting. I'm here today with the architect, Hicks of Gate 211 Architecture. This project is 160 West 74th Street, a Georgian style school building Built in 1893 and designed by Lamb and Rich. It stands on the south side of the street between Amsterdam and Columbus, closer to Amsterdam. The proposal you're seeing today is for the installation of a barrier-free access chairlift at the front stoop, which will require alterations at the below-grade light well and stoop, and also filling in a light well on the east elevation, and the construction of a rooftop in rear addition, and installation of new mechanical equipment at the roof. Over the course of the 20th century, the building was home to 3 different schools, most recently the Calhoun School. Its new use will be as a temporary housing for women operated by Volunteers of America under the supervision of VHS. In this historic photograph from when it was the LaSalle School in 1946, it actually gives a nice little aerial view into the below-grade light well which, at the side of the stoop, which is exactly where the proposed chairlift is going. So here are existing condition photos of the building overall, close-up of the stoop. And in the lower right corner, you can see exactly where that view is looking at the side of the stoop. That's exactly where the proposed lift will be. Here are close-up photos of existing conditions at the stoop. At the side of the stoop right now, there's a low wall with a fence above it. That portion of that low wall will be removed. The wall will then return toward the facade of the building, and the existing rail will be reinstalled on top of the new wall that will become perpendicular to the facade. Here's the existing proposed plan showing the installation of the chair. I don't know what's going on. Nice. Okay, that's better. So you'll note the proposed plan. Part of the proposal is to bring forward a step that's currently at the threshold of the doors. Bring that forward to create another platform for the chairlift platform to land on. Here you can see the installation section. And here it is an elevation. Existing and proposed. Here's a render showing the proposed installation of the new concrete platform at the side of the stoop and the new chairlift on the right. Here's an example of a recent approval for a chairlift. This is at 1 West 88th Street, Trevor Day School lower school building, excuse me. And here's a photo from the manufacturer of the lift showing exactly what this model lift would look like. Oh, sorry, this is an older version of the presentation. This should not be in, my apologies. This should also not be in, there's certain things we identified as being staff level work after the fact. Here's to focus your attention on the rendering on the right. It's a good image showing us what the proposed platform would look like looking down from the stoop into the existing areaway. Okay, can we ignore this? My apologies. Here's existing photos of the rear facade. Now turn our attention to what's happening at the back of the building. The rear of the building, incidentally, is not visible from any public thoroughfare, but it is fully built out to its rear lot line, so it's really impossible to get one good photograph of the entire rear facade. So on the bottom, you're seeing photos looking down the existing exterior stairwell, looking down at the basement level, and then at the top, you're looking at the main portion of the rear facade from this deck or terrace that's created by the lower 2 floors of the building, which extend to the rear lot line. So again, because this was previously a school building, it has these existing exterior metal stairs, which are going to be removed as part of this work. Here's another photo of the existing rear facade and a photo of the top of the rear facade where you can see there's a setback portion of the rear facade that's set back a good, I think, 20 feet from the face of the existing rear facade. And that is exactly where the proposed rear addition will go. So it will become in the same plane as the rest of the rear facade. Here are photos taken from that upper terrace, looking at the existing top floor roof facade of the building. It's clad in something like a faux wood material with vinyl windows. There's really nothing significant about the existing rear facade, top floor rear facade. Here are existing proposed rear elevations. So what's happening is a portion of this building is proposed to be resectioned at the upper floors to create an additional floor, which is why you can see a change in fenestration from 2 rows of windows to 3 rows of windows in the proposed rear elevation. Here you can see the change in section. So in the middle, you see in red the areas highlighted for demolition, including that one exterior metal stair. And on the right, the proposed section showing you where we're proposing to put in 3 partial floors where there's currently really like 1.5. Here's an axiom showing you the changes at the rear and at the roof. The other portion of this proposal is to infill the existing light well, which you can see at the east lot line, and build above that a stairway and elevator bulkhead. This is the existing section. Sightline notes, is to demonstrate that there's no portion of this work at the roof that would be visible from directly across the street. Proposed section with the existing envelope outlined in red, so you can also see the change in volume. Here's existing conditions at those roofs. Existing and proposed main roof plan. You can see on the left side of the plan where there's the existing light well proposed to be infilled with what you see on the right is a stairway and elevator bulkhead. These are proposed building elevations taken from proposed elevations of the roof taken from north, south, and east. And additional roof sections. Here are photos of the mock-ups that were built in the roof. Now, this work is not going to be visible, as I said, again, not visible from the back of the building. You can't see this from 73rd Street. You can't see this when you're coming right off of Amsterdam. But as you start to walk east on West 74th Street, the proposed elevator and stairway bulkhead on the east lot line wall does become visible. So you can see a hint of that on the photo on the left. And in these photos, you can see the orange framed mock-up taken from different vantage points as you're walking east on West 74th Street. Here are a few examples of recent approvals for visible rooftop additions. These are just block plans to show you how the block has developed over time. When this block was first built, it was a very homogeneous row house block, but pretty quickly as we came to the early 20th century, there were larger buildings that replaced the row houses, such as hotels and apartment buildings, and institutional buildings such as this former school building. And here's the most recent Cinnabon from 2018. And proposed block plan where you can also see where there are locations of other one-story rooftop additions within this block. Here are photographs just looking at the views from the roof so you can see the context of what's directly adjacent. There are mainly low house buildings with one-story rooftop additions directly to the east. And here are the proposed materials. The brick on the facades is obviously not being touched. We are proposing stucco to finish the addition of the rear of the building because the rear of the building is currently stuccoed over. Proposing this open work screen to enclose the mechanical equipment, new windows for the rear facade, and the light fixture shown there is also only for the rear facade, and the balconies would be clad in a beige stucco. And that's our presentation. I welcome any questions or comments. Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
The guardrail there is, what color was that originally? You have green now, but was it a brick color before? You know?
At the roof, no, I don't think there is even a railing at the roof right now. Want me to go back to the photo?
It's still there. If you go to the first picture you have,
Oh, the areaway. Oh, I'm so sorry.
what's the entrance to the building?
Okay, yes, they're black painted, and it would be black paint on the proposed railing that goes with the installation of the lift and the
Just the original, what the original color is.
black. So, the original color was black, and the proposed railing for the lift is black. Yeah.
Right. So it's a gray color, which is been painted over time, I suppose. Because the stairs are brick, right?
So I guess there's the question of the material of the cheek wall for the railing. We actually don't know because it is painted. So we did not do any probes. We didn't think of that. We didn't think of trying to remove any paint to figure out what the cheek wall is. It may be stone. It may date, looks like it dates to when the building was first constructed. So it's probably stone, but we're just not sure. We can confirm that with the staff and use an appropriate material as necessary. But that the stone cheek walls don't get changed in this proposal. The proposal is just to remove a portion so that the lift has a place to park when it's down. Yes, correct. Is the lift itself black or yes, yeah, including the railing? Yes. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's see if we have any testimony. We have two people who signed up to speak. We'll start with Elliot Shilcroft. I'm sorry if I can't read the handwriting. Yes, come right up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm Shilcroft. I work contiguous to this proposed development at 164 West 74th Street. And I represent both myself and the people in my neighborhood and in my building, and we are strongly opposed to this. We were not informed about it. It was done very deceptively. We were told this was going to be a development of condominiums. And I think that the presentation we just heard is also deceptive. In that the neighborhood, the established nature of the neighborhood, the residential neighborhood of the neighborhood is going to be massively altered and destroyed from this. The price of real estate is going to be dramatically altered because of it. And another piece that I think is really important that is not presented has to do with the back of the building. So the back of the building now is a space between 73rd Street and 74th, and the buildings on 73rd Street have open terraces and gardens and rooftop gardens that look across directly to this building, and they don't show any of that. They're beautiful trees. There's an ancient tree that everybody in the neighborhood is connected to the building. The renovation that they're putting in, which they didn't actually will probably destroy that tree, and massively alter the quality and neighborhood feeling of about 73rd and 74th Street. And we also know what's going to happen to the street. Part of our historic preservation to bring through for 160 people that are going to be in this building, and the garbage that will be coming out of that building in a small residential street is dramatically alter the nature of what living in that neighborhood is like. So I hope that you turn this down and consider these as part of the change to the historic nature of the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim Francia.
Well, my name is Francis. I'm also representing myself and the neighborhood. We believe that one of the things that's important, and coming from the Landmarks Preservation Committee website, is to stabilize and improve property values. Another thing we don't think that will happen if this development goes through. This was an important land-rich building that was always used as a school. And while we're not against repurposing buildings, and affordable housing. The transitory nature of the 24-hour in and out, and people coming in and out of the building 24 hours a day has nothing to do with what this building has been used for since the 1890s. In addition, part of the LPC commission is to strengthen the economy of the city. Sadly, this is being developed by a developer with difficult ties and not ties to the community, but simply to enrich themselves. And lastly, these developments at 108 West 83rd Street, 340 West 85th Street have impacted those neighborhoods very badly. Again, because a building that was built for a school is going to be populated with 150 people 24 hours a day. No presentation was given to how the garbage is going to come in and out of the building, how the food is going to come in and out of the building, and how those changes are going to impact the historic nature of the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I see one hand raised in the attendees list, that being Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and say your name for the record, and we'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee recognises the proposed stairlift is the most optimal means of accessibility for this existing condition, and that its installation provides access while causing the least disturbance to the historic fabric. The proposed rooftop addition at the rear should be set back from the rear wall by at least a foot to differentiate it from the original fabric. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Sydney Kaplan. Sydney Kaplan, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and say your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. I'm Sydney Kaplan. I'm a resident of the building, or an owner in the building next door to the proposed shelter. I just have a few concerns, and sorry if a lot of them are repeats of what other people have said, but just starting, in terms of the actual building itself, I'm in the back of the building, and along with the other people in the back of the building and other buildings on 74th and 73rd and the proposed building, we have sort of a courtyard there where we all have views, and this will definitely severely alter the views and what people are seeing. And then, just issues with the drastic change of the street and the neighborhood. It's a nice family neighborhood. And they're just planning to bring in sort of a very unknown element here. And a 24/7, you're going to have people potentially going in and out. And there's going to be, deliveries of food by truck, laundry, garbage, emergencies. Before it was a school from 8 to 5. And then people left. They didn't have lunch there. Lunch wasn't offered. So, there was no food delivery. This can potentially block up the whole street, but back up traffic onto Amsterdam. And there's also the issue of child safety. Like I said, it's a very family oriented neighborhood. And this is just an unknown element moving in. I have 2 kids, so I'm sorry if I'm sort of in, I hope I'm visible here, but I'm actually in my son's school picking him up. And there's a number of security measurements brought up for this new building, which indicates to me that they're aware of potential dangers, and yet they're still willing to go through with it. There's also been a large lack of communication about this overall. How our city councilwoman was not even informed, I don't know. And it just doesn't seem like there's been any thought given to the community, how this will affect the community, how it will cause overcrowding, disruption to the neighborhood. And, the whole idea of the LPC is to, safeguard buildings, to stabilize and improve property values and foster civic pride and strengthen the economy of the city and promote use of historic districts and landmarks for the education, pleasure, and welfare of the people of the city. And this is just, an unknown destruction of, the quality of life, where there have been, and there's been a lot of places where there have been shelters and shelters set up, and it just sort of has ruined the neighborhood, and it's made approval of approval of this shelter is just going to drastically change the neighborhood and just the way people live.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Okay, I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the questions, particularly focusing on the issues that are under our purview.
Yes, thank you, Chair Carroll. The one thing, with respect, this commission cannot regulate things like private views or the use of the building, which is why we focused on architectural changes to the building in our presentation. Having said that, I can tell you that the organization that's going to be running this building has a focus on transitioning people out of homelessness, getting them jobs. It's supportive housing. There will be 24/7 security on site. It's an organization that's really working to help people, in particular homeless women who are most vulnerable when they're living on the streets. And aside from that, I think the changes at the rear are appropriate in that this is a building that's always had institutional use. It's in a vertical city, institutional use buildings, I think, need to have a little more flexibility in what this commission allows so that they can further their mission. In addition, I don't think there's anything particularly significant about this rear facade or the current setback rear facade. And lastly, just to briefly say about community concerns again, living in the city, we all have a responsibility to, take on some things we may not want into our neighborhoods. My neighborhood recently had a new garbage transfer station opened on the East River, right by my son's school. And it's really not that bad. We had a lot of concerns about how many garbage trucks were going to be coming through. It's really not that bad. Not to make light of anyone's concerns, but I just think we all in the city have responsibility to help make the city better. Thank you.
Commissioners, any final questions on this one? Okay, so let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Vogel, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we're going to review this application. We have really three components. One is the modification to the entry to install the lift, which will be on a black railing and will involves removing a portion of the areaway to allow for that lift to park when not in use. There is the portion of the proposal to enlarge or pull out the top floor of the rear facade, which is non-historic fabric, and it will align with the existing lower floors and not project any further into the rear yard than that. And finally, there's a stair and elevator bulkhead, which will be seen from certain view corridors, view corridors. And so these are changes that are fairly common for the Landmarks Commission to review, particularly as buildings adapt for different uses. And we'll discuss it in the context of our practices and our policies. And just to reiterate, the commission does not regulate use or garbage sanitation issues or security issues. So those items will not be part of our discussion. So we'll begin our discussion now. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, sure. I think that the access proposal is appropriate. It's utilizing an existing light well, and it's fairly minimal in character. I don't think it's obtrusive to the facade. I was thinking about when we saw that long on Fifth Avenue actually raising stairs, but this is it's an airlift. I think it's not going to be terribly intrusive when it's not going up. So I think it's going to be okay. And it's a need particularly for this kind of facility. With the use that's going on, I think also that the elevator and shaft is appropriate. The changes to the rear on a facade that's is not. I think it's okay to have a full height. I think it's full height if I recall, but anyway, to go up another story because of the need and the fact that it's not really visible in the back, and it's also not on altered facade, and the visibility of the rooftop accretions, including the elevator, I think, while visible, it's in the context of a lot of other large buildings and things in the background. So I don't think it will call undue attention to itself. So I think this, and the building is not projecting further back in the back. In fact, it's less so in some respects because we're taking away those stairs. So
that's right.
I think it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldman?
I will agree 100% with what Diana just said. I also agree 100% with what Jackie said in terms of, I personally feel that as a member of this commission, we have a serious responsibility to keep, to maintain and extend preservation standards in the context of a growing, active city that has a desperate need for facilities of this type. So there's nothing about this application that I can see that goes against any of our standards, any of our precedents. We're basically doing a one-story extension of the rear yard of a non-townhouse apartment building, building like volume that happen to have an institutional use. There's many precedents for our approving similar extensions for schools, for other kinds of buildings that are in residential districts. This is the visible stuff is incredibly modest and normal, and in this district you see bulkheads all the time. The front stair modification is totally appropriate, and again, has been approved at this commission numerous times. And I think anybody who looked at the Sunday opinion section would see that there's an opinion out there that is fallacious, that somehow the Landmarks Commission gets in the way of progress in this city. When I imagine will be an approval on this project should go towards countering that argument.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up and pointing that out. Does anyone have any differing thoughts or additional thoughts? Okay, so I think this is, as Michael said, it's really very consistent with the kinds of things that we review and approve all the time on these building types in this type of historic district. So with that, Commissioner Chapin, would you make the motion? Okay.
The matter of certificate of appropriate this borough of Manhattan, LPC 24038885 160 West 74th Street, aka 16162 West 74th Street, Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District, a Georgian Revival style school building designed and rich and built in 1893. Application is to construct rear yard and rooftop additions and remove the portion of an areaway wall to install a barrier-free access lift. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will accommodate barrier-free access at the main building entrance in the least intrusive manner, and that the removal of historic fabric will be limited to a portion of the front areaway wall. That the lift railings and modified landing will be simply designed and typical in terms of materials and finishes, thereby helping them to convey a secondary presence. That the platform lift will be stored in a down position to minimize its visual presence and not disrupt the facade's composition. That the proposed rooftop bulkheads and light wall infill will only be visible from select oblique vantage points to the northeast and west 74th Street against a complex roofscape and will not come into attention to itself. That other buildings in the block vary in height and depth, including an adjacent apartment building that projects beyond their proposed rear facade, and the proposed rear addition will not encroach further into or detract from the central green space. But the proposed rear addition will not be visible from the public thoroughfare. With the design and materiality of the additions featuring beige stucco cladding and dark finish metal window and door assemblies will be consistent with existing materials of the building's rear facade. That the fenestration of the modified rear facade, the proposed addition above, will continue the regularized pattern of fenestration at the lower floors at a smaller scale relating to the change in floor levels within. But the removal of the existing historic metal exit stairs and ribbon metal infill at the rear facade will not make any historic fabric, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Upper West Side West Historic District.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Of 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing agenda number 9, LPC 24-03097, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 2367, lot 38, 17 Filmore Place in the Filmore Place Historic District. An Italianate-style row house built circa 1853. Application is to construct a rear yard addition.
I have, and if I could ask you to just sort of be succinct and move quickly through the presentation, that would be helpful because we are running very behind schedule.
Like this. Let's see. Thank you very much. My name is Paulina Karakova. I'm here with Sarah Jeffries, representing Sarah Jeffries Design. Let's see. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to present to you our project in the beautiful historic Filmore Place District. This landmarked area is one of the smallest in Brooklyn and consists of just a handful of the original townhomes, which are facing each other along Filmore Place, which you can see in the small diagram here. Our clients, along with several of their neighbors over the past 20 years, have gone to great lengths to repair and restore the original front facade of this picturesque single block, which you can see in the slide before you.
And while it was very important for our clients to preserve this piece of history, as you walk down their street and around the block, what you will notice is that at the rear of these buildings, a very different story is being told. As you can see, while the front facades of these bright red brick townhomes with ornamental brownstone headers and beautiful rooftop cornices allow us to take a walk down History Lane, the original rear facades were not really remarkable at all, as evident by the neighbor's home to our right and also further down to the left. The simple flat rear brick facades with punctured openings for windows and no other remarkable features have over the years deteriorated, been patched, and sometimes covered up with stucco. As time marched on, the adjacent streets facing the rear of our block sprung up an eclectic collection of newer styles reflecting the designs of the years as they passed. In dire need of repair, our neighbor's renovation to the left, which you can see in the bottom right corner, followed suit by creating a design that brings in much needed light into their home, bringing the style closer to a more modern aesthetic. Here you can see the existing rear facade, which was previously already renovated. And you can clearly see the sort of stacked, layered, sort of disjointed effect as the building moves up. Today, as our client's family has grown and their needs have changed, so has the approach to the new design. The residence is being combined into a single shared family home with the goal of creating a connection between all the floors and bringing in as much light as possible. To accomplish this, we are proposing to extend the top 2 floors. You can see in the section here to align with the addition below to create a more cohesive design and create a central atrium with a skylight, which you can see in the rendered section, bringing in much needed light into the center of the home. This design allows for moments of privacy for each of the residents while creating an interconnected shared family areas throughout the vertical space. In plan, you can see the diagonal floor cuts on the upper levels, which connect to the common family space on the first floor, and are then translated into the rear facade, tying in together the exterior and the interior. This creates a cohesive and visually interesting rear facade with large fenestration openings that bring additional light into the building and provide views into the backyard green spaces and the eclectic facades of the other modern buildings around the perimeter of the block. The light stucco facade and the facade visually brings in the exterior into the house and creates a clear connection to the surrounding buildings. As a result, walking through the building is in a way a journey through history, starting in the past as you walk through the historic front entry, drawing you inside towards the open space of the atrium, and then through to the rear yard where you can set into the present. We have included some window details for the more technically minded to show the stucco construction. And then finally, here are a couple of examples of other buildings in New York City that have done a similar design with the beautiful preservation of the front facades, and then a more modern cohesive design in the rear. Yes, and these are both in line with the stripes. Here are just some images of the rear yard areas, and then as you can see, the different homes around the block, and they vary widely from traditional to more modern.
On the bottom right here, you will actually see the corner, which would potentially have the most visibility, but actually does not allow for any visibility of our building. And we believe this is one of the important points to highlight is that while we are very much in favor of preserving the beautiful historic elements on the front, which are part of the public domain, the rear yard is not visible to the public, and therefore should be designed in a way to be cohesive with the surrounding buildings and also to work the most appropriately for our client. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You did an excellent job. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Let's see if we have any testimony. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting there isn't, I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised in the attendees list. First we'll be hearing from is John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. This proposal has nothing in its favor. The addition would rise to the full height of the historic building, preserving none of the original envelope and materials at the rear facade. The proposed rear facade design doesn't acknowledge that it's within an historic district, in fact, a tiny historic district and the only one in all of Williamsburg. The modernistic faceted design proposed may be compatible with much of the new construction in the larger surrounding neighborhood, but it clashes with the historic designs and materials on nearby buildings within the district. The applicant should study the designation report and return with a proposal that recognizes and reflects the architectural character and historic significance of the district and of this building. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this project to be completely inappropriate. This 1853 Italianate-style row house was originally built as a multifamily dwelling for working-class tenants. Expanding the rear so dramatically overwhelms the building and changes the entire composition of the structure while forcing a wholesale loss of historic fabric at the rear. The top 2 stories of the original building should be left intact so that the structure's historic envelope is legible. Because this proposal envisions such dramatic changes to the building, we will add that Filmore Place is the only historic district that Williamsburg has, and thereby this is the only stretch of the neighborhood that is, in theory, protected from the misguided logic that sees our shared built environment as belonging only to its current owners and thereby expendable according to their whims. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised in the attendees list, so I will note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 1 recommends approval, and I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, so I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Yeah, we would. Thank you. I mean, just to note that the building's original.
Say your name.
Oh, sorry. I'm Sarah Jefferson. She introduced me earlier. Sorry about that.
It's official.
Now it's official. The original facade, the rear facade is already being tampered with. I mean, there's already been additions to it. I would argue to say that some of it's sort of faux traditional, which I always find more offensive than actually preserving what's there versus modern. And so there's not really much to preserve of the original facade. It's already been tampered with quite a bit. And we would argue that
our renovation of the rear actually brings a more cohesive design to the rear versus the multi-step that's quite common. Next door, for example, is a 3-story addition that goes out quite a bit further. And we're proposing to set ours back from that and make a more cohesive design overall that we would argue is more aesthetically pleasing.
Okay, thank you.
And I think just one quick note, I believe the previous commenter had mentioned, this was originally a multi apartment for multiple residents. This is no longer the case. This is zoned for single family homes, and it is owned by a single family. And to keep sort of this disjointed facade doesn't serve them well. And as Sarah had mentioned, if they are forced to expand sort of the lower stories rather than this sort of small adjustment to what already exists and then just, expands the existing facade, if they had to bring down the lower stories further out, then they're taking over more of the green space, which I believe is less, more negative to the public for something that they don't necessarily see, but it can have negative effects to the public in that way.
Even though, to reiterate, you also cannot see this from the private thing, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, any final questions? All right, Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll begin our discussion, and this is an application for a rear yard addition in this district that is a relatively small district, and on this block only covers a portion of the block. It is a row house in a continuous row with a continuous plane at the top floor, which is something that we typically look at to retain as part of retain the legibility of the row and also some sense of the original volume. So, and the adjacent addition is to preserve that top floor. So we'll have a discussion. I think the adjacent addition when we reviewed that, we recognized that the block had variety because much of it was out of the district. But we did ask that or approve something that was 1 story below. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, would you go ahead and start this one?
Sure. The commission doesn't just protect the facades. The commission protects the buildings to the extent that the fact that something may not be visible from the public is not the only criterion that we use to judge whether or not something's appropriate. In the case of townhouse rear facade additions, of which we see gazillions, the general rule has always been, as Sarah said, that we try to preserve the top floor at least of a townhouse's original back wall so that its volume could be visible, and that the addition can be read as different from the building. In this case, the proposal is to fully eliminate the rear wall and to have the volume of the building completely modified in such a way that an observer in the backyard or anywhere else would never know how big the building originally was. And all that's really left is that little skinny facade up front. So as we do as I have done anyway, in an umpteen number of other cases, I would suggest that the top floor of this be disallowed and that the balance of it be approved. I would also suggest that stucco as a rear facade we've approved sometimes, but generally the sprinkler material that's a little sturdier and more substantive, usually masonry material. And lastly, I think that we often, when we do see rear yard additions, suggest that they have have greater texture in the glass, that the glass not be large sheets of glass. Although there are cases where we have done it, usually there's some elements of scale that kind of break it down a little bit. even the shots that they brought of other jobs that have like a big and little together. So they might want to look at that too.
Okay, Commissioner Chapin?
I agree with Michael about the upper floor in this case because there is it looks to me a pretty intact row also, as well as the remarks you just made about the upper floor. They're sort of, the architect is working with sort of a sculptural form idea. So I actually think that these large windows fit the form. You know, I mean, truthfully, we fit it without anything in it, but you know, we don't usually go for these giant picture windows. These are pretty big already. So I think it would really disrupt the design to start, you know, putting more, divisions in it. I don't know, the architect might want to redesign if it's going to be 3 floors, they might want to return to us, but that's up to them, obviously. And from the point of view of design. However, as far as stucco, I guess I'd like to hear what other people have to say about it. It's not the most desirable material, but we don't prohibit it, so
okay,
there might be a nicer approach that can be suggested, but it's I don't think we would kind of rare that we deny it, especially the building next to it. It looks like it might be next to it made out of something.
Okay.
Looks like stucco maybe on the back of the other, even in the older building too. Oh, it's just painted. Yeah, you can't tell. Yeah. Anyway, so but I could approve it, I think, as presented with a floor removed.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
I agree with Commissioner Goldblum, but I do see the issues of this facade design in the back and how it's terminated on the 3rd floor is up to the architect. But I think keeping the volume of the building intact is an incredibly good rule. And how they resolve the dialectic of the existing and the new.
Okay.
Should be discussed with staff.
Okay. Commissioner Master?
I agree with Commissioner Chapin. I think it's approvable if they take the top floor off of the rear yard addition.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I think to be consistent with this commission's previous rulings, that is something that, I recognize this block is also particular because it's got large scale buildings on most of it. But I think that's what urges a lot of us to want to protect it more because it's only a few houses in all of this area. So I would say, again, if we just got rid of the top floor, I would also entertain looking at remassing the bottom if that's desired to make a simpler expression, if that's desired. I would also say that stucco, I think we could accept it, but may not give the articulation and the sharp lines that this design seems to be looking for.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I agree. The 3rd floor should come off to retain the consistency of the row. I absolutely don't have a problem with these windows. I mean, especially when I look at them next to rear. Plus they're recessed, and I happen to concur that the applicant may want to consider coming back to us, and if this is the design just to enhance it, I would also agree that while I can approve stucco, you might want to consider using a material that will present it in its best way.
Okay, Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, no disagreement here. I think historically we have consistently set back the top floor, but I think to give the applicant some option is obviously, since they have not on the other lower floors, if they want to extend out, they can work with staff and see if they want to recover some of that floor space.
I'm sorry, and so you had said eliminate the top floor and.
Yeah, just to be consistent with our, gazillion other cases, but I just also felt that if they felt that they need the space, that you have option to let them extend the lower two floors, there's still room there.
Okay. So hang on, I think we have clearly no support for the full height addition as it's presented, but I think we have enough to approve it as presented, but a story lower. But we're checking to see if the applicants, in thinking about a lower addition, would want the option to redesign and come back.
But I think implicit would be request to lower and story would be the request. Again, it's always keep the fenestration on top floor.
Yes.
Exists. So
We'll make that clear. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead today and we'll vote on the application to approve it, but by lowering it one floor and maintaining the masonry openings at the top floor, the configuration of the masonry openings at the top floor. And I think most people were comfortable with the tripartite windows, if you are too. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. And if the applicants wish to think of a new design, they can come back with a new application for that in the future.
Regarding 17 Filmore Place, the Filmore Place Historic District, the applications to construct a rear yard addition, I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details and features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Filmore Place Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, noting that the existing rear addition and top floor of the rear facade have been recently rebuilt. Therefore, no significant architectural features will be altered by the construction of the rear addition, but only half the block is located within the historic district, and that the block features a variety of building types and sizes. Therefore, the presence of a sculptural contemporary rear yard addition is consistent with the varied buildings and additions within the block, and that the use of a neutral stucco facade with large French window openings will be in keeping with other contemporary additions approved in this district. However, I recommend that the addition be reduced by one floor and that the masonry openings that are there now on the top floor be retained.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin. Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passed.
All right, so that's approved with that modification. And please continue to work with the staff. Thank you. And we're going to move to the next item. We're actually going to flip the order of the last two items. 5 minutes.
You stand? You gotta go.
So there is a slight change to the order of the agenda. We will be moving to public hearing item number 11, LPC 24-02511. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for Brooklyn, block 321, lot 31, 467 Hicks Street in the Cobble Hill Historic District. This is a building built in 1873 to 74. Application is to construct a rear yard addition.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Good evening. Rick Inzar for operations proposed to 467 Hicks Street in Brooklyn. I'm here with architect Sarah Jacoby and her associate Alice Volpe and property owner Ken Whitman to present operations proposed to the rear elevation that includes an addition at the first floor. Situated on the western boundary of the Cobble Hill Historic District, 467 Hicks Street is a 3-story brick building located on the east side of Hicks Street. Originally built as a residential structure, it was later modified for commercial use, then after once again in 1948 for use as a multiple dwelling. At center is a contemporary photo of the secondary elevation. The predominant feature at the rear is a 2-story metal deck that extends 8 feet from the building wall into the rear yard. This deck provides an open terrace at the 3rd floor and covered space at the 2nd and 1st floors. A standard vertical iron railing rings the 3rd floor, while the 2nd floor railing has a decorative design. Each floor has a more or less centered set of doors with a single window to the left and to the right. The facade has been finished with a brownstone stucco
with block storing on which has been painted at the first and second floors. An ad hoc arbor occupies a portion of the third floor terrace. At the center of the first floor deck, there are 3 steps leading down to garden grade. These are contemporary photos taken from the rear yard of 467 Hicks from left to right, rear facades of 469 and 471 Hicks. At the center, 467 Hicks, and then to the right, a view at grade towards 465 Hicks, followed by a photo from the third floor. To locate the property and rear yard on the block, here's an existing condition block plan. Here is 467 Hicks Street over here on the upper right. You can see the rear yards run along Kane Street to the north, perpendicular to 467 Hicks Street lot line. Of the 61 lots in the block, only 9 have rear yard additions. Now, here are existing proposed elevations at the rear facade. At the left, the existing condition, we can see the 2 balconies. At the first floor deck, there are center doors with flanking windows. At the garden level, steps from the deck to the garden grade. Farther left are samples of the existing finish. A brownstone stucco scored in a block pattern. The finish is in good condition at the third floor, but has been painted at the first and second floors. At the right, the proposed condition. Proposed at the first floor garden level is a 1-story addition that will occupy the same area and same volume as that of the existing first floor covered deck. The addition will have 3 paired doors. The center door is slightly thinner than the flanking doors. Steps down to the garden grade level will run along the full width of the addition. At the second and third floor, reconstruction of the decks with wrought iron railings to match the existing second floor decorative railing design. The second floor will have new paired doors and flanking double hung windows, all installed in masonry openings modified to line up with those on the third floor. The third floor double hung windows and center paired doors will be replaced in kind. None of the third floor masonry openings will be modified. Here's an existing condition section showing the covered first floor deck, second floor deck, and third floor balcony. And here is the proposed section, continuous stairs at grade, a new rear yard addition at the first floor, and decks at the second and third floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just for clarity, and I appreciate you presenting the project comprehensively, Commissioner. The parts of this that is actually before us is just the 1-story addition enclosing the ground floor of that set of balconies. So are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Chase.
Yeah, just why is it outside of staff level approval? I haven't paid attention to that issue.
I'd like an answer to that.
For staff level approval, the majority of buildings in the block must have rear yard additions, and that is not the case for this particular. So we're looking at it because the context does not support reviewing this in staff level.
Okay.
All right. Yes, any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
I mean, it's a symmetrical facade, and then there's one dimension here that is 1'10". Why? Between you have 1'3", then you have 1'10".
One's not sure where is that.
Your back facade is symmetrical, almost symmetrical, almost. And if you go to that, you see where you have the 1'10" on the right hand side.
What we're trying to do is maintain the masonry. If you could just come up to the mic and state your name, yeah.
Sarah Jacoby, architect. Basically, we're just leaving the openings at the top, which wasn't perfectly symmetrical, I believe, if I'm understanding where you're pointing to. I can't even see the dimensions.
Anyway.
You refer to your addition at the ground floor to the new facade, and it's asking why the center doors are centered.
I think because the facade itself, based on the top, isn't actually centered. So we're using the center line of the middle opening at the top, and we're using the sides. But because the building itself is just off symmetrical, we would be happy to make it symmetrical if you would let us change the opening.
I see the functional reason for it. But, symmetry is such a powerful.
We love symmetry. We're open to symmetry.
So I think like this, so they're working on the existing center line, but also this one-story addition will be in a different plane and those will be concealed partially behind the railing. So they may not have much of a visual relationship. Any other questions? All right, is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, we'll move to public, see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I do not see any hands raised for this item. If you would like to speak now, please click the raise hand button. Okay, nobody has raised their hand, so I will just note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 6 recommends approval. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay. All right, so commissioners, if there are no final questions, we can probably move to our discussion. All right, Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you, Commissioner Chu. Would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion on this one-story addition, what is sort of tucked underneath this existing set of terraces. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start?
Related to, as Commissioner Banerjee, when I looked at this should have been, this is very modest and this should have been a staff level approval.
And I think in other cases where we do see applications that don't meet that particular criterion, where the block doesn't have more than 50% of the buildings with similar additions, we've often found one-story additions to still be modest incursions within the block. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree. It's a modest addition and I don't see anything objectionable in it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Any other thoughts?
Oh, wait, I just want to.
Yes, go ahead.
So I lived between Kane and DeGraw for like 10 years when it was just became Copper Hill. I on Henley. And one thing I loved about the neighborhood, and it's really fantastic to see this when looking at the donut, is that so many of the homes like remain intact in the donut. It's like very special. And of course, the neighborhood's beautiful. So I can certainly approve this and wish you good luck. And if you're into symmetry.
Okay, great. So Commissioner Chen, would you make the motion?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I have it in front of me. LPC 24-02511 467 Hicks Street. Oh, it's a Hicks Street one, right? Copper Hill Historic District. The application is to construct a rear addition. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed rear addition will not be visible from any public thoroughfares, that the rear yard addition will not project further into the rear yard than the existing rear deck, and therefore will not eliminate the presence of the rear yard or diminish the central green space. That the rear yard addition is modest in scale and limited to one story and will not overwhelm the building or adjacent buildings, and that the simple design and materiality of the addition, featuring stucco cladding and French openings, will be in keeping with the residential scale and character of the building and other buildings in the back.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark.
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. All right, thank you. We'll move to the next and final item.
So the final item will be public hearing item number 10. This is LPC 24-04315, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 1829, lot 58. 313 Jefferson Avenue in the Bedford Historic District. A neo-Greek style row house designed by George H. Stone and built circa 1884. The application is to replace the roof facade and construct a rooftop addition.
Hi, my name is Aya Masada, and I'm a principal at Now, the architects of the project. And I'm here at 2% 313 Jefferson Avenue in Brooklyn. The subject site is within the Bedford Historic District. I'm gonna skip this. So it shows that this is a subject site. It's within a cluster of 3 row houses, starting from 309 to 313 Jefferson Avenue between Tompkins and Marcy Avenue. There is a slight view to the rear facade from Tompkins Avenue, which is outside the historic district. The scope of work is an entire facade, is an entire renovation and the front facade restoration. We're working at staff level, and we wanted to focus this presentation on the bulkhead and rear facade scope of the project. The demolition is extensive, being the bulk of the interior and rear facade, as well as a portion of the roof to make way for the proposed bulkhead. There is a new deck at the rear of the parlor level that spans the width of from boundary to boundary. It spans the width of the building. This is the front facade that we are proposing to restore, and what we wanted to show here is the extent of the bulkhead, which is set back 17.5 feet from the front wall. And it is a sloped bulkhead. There are 2 fire inactive chimneys that will remain. And here we can see the mass of the roof bulkhead that is set back from the street wall by 17.5 feet with 2 skylights. And it also is set back from the sideline from across the street. We'd like to bring your attention to the rear facade and its context to the adjacent houses. Both of them have painted rear facades, and 311 Jefferson is in a rendered surface with painted finish. We are proposing to demolish the entirety of the rear facade based on the evaluation we received from our structural engineers. There is significant water damage and potential settlement issues at the foundation, and visible structural damages from both the exterior and interior from years of neglect of the house. The structural engineers recommended a full reconstruction in its entirety, and we're taking this opportunity to reconstruct with applying modern environmental energy codes and modern building practices, considering aesthetics, cost, and constructability. We are proposing a light gray stucco finish over the newly constructed wall, which we arrived at that decision based on looking at 7 other precedent houses along this row of houses. So we are keeping the setup of the windows at the top 2 floors in its place and replacing them with casement windows, and proposing a new large opening at the parlor level. Oh.
So the screen is still showing it here, so I'm not sure what happened. Yes.
Okay, so this is to show that we are trying to keep the setup of the window and the top two floors, consistent with existing with casement windows and a larger opening with sliding doors there and a new setup for the sliding doors and windows at this basement level, as well as the roof bulkhead. So here is a zoomed in view showing the casement windows and the gray, the silver aluminum finish for the windows, as well as this bioline rendered finish that we have selected. We did a physical mock-up for review of the proposed bulkhead. And can show here that from this point, you can't see it towards Marcy Avenue. Right in front, it's not visible, as well as from this point down the block. But there begins to be a slight visibility from this point. And also once we turn the corner at Tompkins, which is outside the historic boundary. These are details of the window showing the casement window for these second and third floor windows. And these windows at the second floor, this window 3 and 4 are fixed windows because this area is a double height space. This is the modern aluminum sliding door details that is proposed for this bigger opening at the parlor level. And then we have the sliding doors at the basement as well as the bulkhead access. This is a proposed detail for how the exterior wall will be reconstructed and connected back to the party wall, as well as a detail of how we are proposing to render the front and how we're terminating it on that rear facade. So we just wanted to show you how deteriorated the condition of the house is from the inside, where we see a lot of mold and peeling of all the interior finishes and significant water damage from years of neglect. The rear extension, we see again the same consistent water damage and some cracking of the walls in this area. And then the closer view of all these issues with severe joint separation, loose bricks, step cracking, and deterioration of that whole facade. Thank you for your time and I hope for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, what is the material of adjacent buildings? Looks like one of them is stucco, maybe.
There are painted brick consistently, and then just fade out. And there are some rendered. So this is adjacent to it, which is not part of the road. It's a painted brick, and then this is a rendered painted finish. And then the one next to it is a brick finish. And then this is the whole row, as we can see it from left and then from the right side of the rear facade. Okay. And many of them, 7 of them are in this gray render.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
It's not clear from your details. Are we removing the existing brick and then putting metal studs up and
yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Cold formed.
Yeah, and I understand that you submitted an engineer's report to address the condition and need for reconstruction, but can you talk a little bit about why you chose not to reconstruct it in brick with lintels and sills, either cast stone or stone lintel sills?
It was both a practical and an aesthetic decision. In order to create this large opening at the parlor floor, we had to create a new steel beam and columns to support it. And so that plus trying to get us to better energy code and constructability and practicality made us arrive at this decision.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, let's see if we have any testimony. I'll note there is nobody in the hearing room, so I'm going to turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised in the hearing room. So first we'll be hearing from Beryl Nyack from Brooklyn Community Board 3. Beryl Nyack, I'm promoting you to panels now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Beryl Nyack, Community Board 3 in Brooklyn. The Community Board 3 Landmark Committee believes that the proposed bulkhead is much too large and potentially visible from the street. The deck railings are perched at the very rear of the house, visible and not set back. The structural design for the rear wall and roof alterations are requested. The casement windows proposed are unique to the block and a significant non-contextual design element. The proposed alterations will significantly impact the district's form and are not aligned with the historic character of the district. Therefore, with due consideration to the committee's comments, Brooklyn Community Board 3 objects to the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed alteration at 313 Jefferson Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11216. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelists right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the height, massing, and visibility of the rooftop and rear yard additions to be appropriate as proposed, but we share Brooklyn Community Board 3's concern about the material palette proposed for the rear. If the rear facade can be restored, it should be restored in kind. If it must be rebuilt, it should be rebuilt in brick and block with articulated sills, lintels, and crenelated brick cornice. Stucco is not appropriate. Community Board 3 points out that the undivided casement windows proposed for the rear are inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I am promoting you to panelists right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The Victorian Society would not normally support the demolition of the entire rear facade of a 19th century building. We make a rare exception for this proposal for work at 313 Jefferson because the applicant has provided photographs which clearly document the building's extremely deteriorated condition, evidence of what must have been years of neglect. We also appreciate that the applicant has stated on drawing LPC 4 that the new facade will be constructed in the same location as the existing facade, and that the new window openings will match the historic window pattern on the upper 2 stories. However, we strongly recommend 3 additional steps to restore the original unity of the rear facade of this row of 19th century houses. First, we continue to question the installation of large window openings which span the width of buildings of this age. We recommend that the ground floor be provided with individual full-length windows separated by masonry piers, which align with the window openings on the upper floors. Second, The facade should be of brick with cast lintels and sills to match the existing original condition. And third, we recommend the use of 1/1 double hung windows for the openings on the top 2 floors. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Claudette Brady. Claudette Brady, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Okay, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Claudette Brady. I am Executive Director of Save Harlem Now. I am also one of the community advocates who was involved in the creation of the Bedford Historic District. First, I'd like to commend the homeowners and the architects for taking on the restoration and renovation of this beautiful building in Bedford-Stuyvesant. The architect has proposed using gray stucco on the back facade to match adjacent buildings' non-historic alterations. A reconstruction of the back wall in brick with historically appropriate double hung windows, particularly on the upper 2 floors with sills and lintels, would be more appropriate and in context with this historic neighborhood. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments.
I have no further comments.
Okay. All right, so then commissioners, if there are no final questions, we'll move to our discussions. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Oh, yes. Okay, go ahead.
I have a question. Because of the visibility of the bulkhead, in looking at the drawing here, it seems like you have a little room, you have room to lower it a little bit. Would that not be correct?
I believe have minimized the height of the bulkhead. But the visibility is towards this area. We're working with, let me just pull up a section actually. We are working with the existing slope of the roof and that with a minimal headroom is how we arrived at the bulk.
And that's at the minimum height required.
That is the minimum.
Okay, okay. Thank you. All right.
And was that modified?
I did want, sorry.
Was that modified since the community board?
Sorry, I couldn't understand.
Was it modified since the community board hearing?
That was, I believe, what we presented at the community board. But the issue I wanted to bring up is that the railing is set back slightly from the rear face of the rear wall.
Okay, okay. All right, so then I think we'll move to close the hearing. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen. Would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we have 2 items before us with this project. The one is the rooftop addition, which the stair bulkhead portion of it is visible over the side facade over the roof of other houses in the streetscape. And this is, I think, sort of consistent in knowing that it's the minimum height required. I think is consistent with the types of rooftop accretions that we see historically and throughout our historic districts. The second aspect of the application is to reconstruct the rear facade, and I think that the engineer's report has satisfied the staff about the need to reconstruct it. So really the question before us is in what material and I think we've heard a lot of testimony about the proposed materials, and the applicant has shown that the adjacent buildings all have brick or painted brick with stone or lintels and sills. And so I think that's something that we're going to need to discuss as we discuss this application. And just finally, with respect to the single pane windows, those actually, if this were just an application to replace the windows, those would be eligible for a staff level approval. So the single pane windows in and of themselves are not what is triggering our review. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. Looking at the bulkhead which was raised, I think that there may be, I'd like the applicant to look with staff just at the section again, because I think on the slope side, it does appear that it could push further towards the backyard, which would reduce its mass view, which I think the more important sight line is from the front facade, as opposed to what you see from the rear over a fence back in the yards. So that's just something I'm asking them to look at with staff. In terms of the rear facade, I don't have any issue with the massing or the window openings in the way they're composed. The only question that seems to be up there is whether or not we feel compelled to require a brick facade. And that's that comes to my head. And I don't know what our precedent has been in the past of mandating such a thing. I think we've accepted other alternates.
I think we have accepted alternates on rear addition.
Rear addition.
Not necessarily rear facades, unless it's a very altered block, I would say.
Okay. So my comment would be that ideally this would be a brick facade reconstructed with those openings, as you've shown. The elevation I'm fine with. It's just the stucco.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Master.
Yeah, in terms of the bulkhead that's visible, I actually think it's okay, given the variety of what we see in this neighborhood, even though it's somewhat visible. So, I mean, we can certainly look at it, but I can vote that it would be appropriate. I agree with Commissioner Chu in terms of the rear yard, that perhaps they with staff can explore a different material, whether it be brick or stone or something that's similar to stone. But other than that, I can find it appropriate.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
Well, has to be studied. And the idea, I prefer brick, but if they wanted to use stucco, they would then have to be careful about the detailing of it, because it's not detailed properly here. And we'll have to go back and keep the third floor, keep the second floor windows as is, and then we can modify it to the ground floor and the basement floor. And I think the facade will just go to brick.
Okay, so stucco maybe on the lower two floors, but it'll all be in one plane. So, yeah. Okay, Commissioner Chapin.
I'm okay with the design of this structure and also with the rooftop. I think but I think really the only question here is the brick for me. And I think if most of the row still is brick, that we should unfortunately require it. I mean, and stucco is not a particularly wonderful material, and we generally don't approve it very much for rear facades. So that's, that's what I would say.
Okay. Commissioner Chen.
Historically, and like all the commissioners said.
And Commissioner Lefty.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Chu that we should do the brick, and I think the bulkhead should be looked at to see if there's any room, because these blocks are pretty intact, and it's always, as soon as, if it's possible for no visibility, it's better for preserving, the clean lawns that these neighborhoods have.
So that's
Okay.
for us now. All right, so we'll make a motion to approve it with the condition that the rear facade be constructed in brick with stone or cast stone lintels and sills, and that they continue to explore ways to minimize the visibility of the bulkhead with the staff. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Oh, did you ask me? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you say it. No.
I didn't say it. I'm so sorry.
Number in the case of LPC 2404-315, 13 Jefferson Avenue, Bedford Historic District, a neo-Breck style roadhouse designed by George H. Stone and built circa 1884. Application is to replace the rear facade and construct a rooftop addition. See, we note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Filmore Place Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the construction of the proposed rooftop addition will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the applicant will work with staff to minimize its bulk and mass or slope in terms of sight lines from the main facade, that the design and materiality of the proposed rooftop addition featuring a sloped roof with skylights and gray stucco finish will be in keeping with the character of the stair bulkheads within the historic district, that the addition will not be visible from directly over the front facade and will only be visible from the east along Jefferson Avenue and minimally visible over the low building along Tompkins Avenue at a distance through the central green space, in that the presence of a visible rooftop addition will be in keeping with utilitarian rooftop accretions found at other buildings within the historic district. We're recommending that the applicant look at a rear facade being reconstructed in brick with cast stone or cast stone lintels and sills to match the historic condition, with the possibility to paint it to achieve a more contemporary look.
That they explore the visibility of the bulkhead.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Levesey.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 7 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so thank you. Please continue to work with the staff and good luck with the building. It's nice to see that it's being taken care of. So that concludes our day. I want to thank everybody, especially you commissioners, for your effort and commitment and hard work all day long. Not have a hearing next week. We will be back on January 23rd.